Good evening. Welcome to the May 13th work session of the Village Board of Trustees. This meeting is now called to order. Please join us for the pledge, followed by a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There are any number of reasons why it was appropriate to have a moment of silence today. Sadly, this week, Ossining had 3 residents killed in very sudden and dramatic and tragic ways. 2 gentlemen that were working at their jobs in Hastings, where the oil tank exploded, and 1 young woman, a senior at Ossining High School, who died tragically in a car accident. Also, last week, someone who's been very generous with her time to the village, Shannon Ross, who led the effort in the Ossining Community Tennis organization, passed on. It was a great surprise to most of us. So we thank Shannon for her service and are very mindful of the pain and challenges that the families are facing that are in so much pain right now. Am I forgetting someone?
No, I think that's about it, right?
Yes. So, with that,
okay. So we do not have a clerk this evening, so we're going to be a little bit different. I think I tried to start.
Do announcements or?
Yeah, should I do the roll? Is that okay?
We don't have to do roll in
you
work
don't have
sessions
to
usually.
Okay,
No.
do attendance or anything?
No.
All right.
Because we're all here.
Okay.
Everyone who's not here, raise your hand.
All right.
All right.
Well, then you want to start with board announcements?
Yes, I'll give a few announcements. There's so many exciting things. Shifting frame of mind for a moment. There's so many exciting things happening in the community, so please take out your calendars. We've got lots to add to them. This Thursday at 6:30, please join us for the Ossining documentary and discussion screening. This one is called Food Chains. It is a film about where our food comes from, particularly the work conditions, often the horrific work conditions for many of the very low-wage workers who are in large part responsible for getting the produce that we all purchase at the stores and such. So there will be a film. It starts at 6:30. As always, it is free. It's held in the Bedars Theater of the Ossining Library, followed by a question and answer session with a panel of people representing various perspectives working in this population. And time is ticking on the Solarize Ossining Briarcliff program. You need to sign up by June 1st if you want to be able to take advantage of the very competitive pricing that is being afforded because of this program. And I see that Trustee DeRio is raising his finger. Do you have an update for us on this front?
Yes, they were on my roof today, climbing about. They called me, and the interesting thing is, last year I did that Energize Ossining thing, and as a result of that report, we did insulation in my roof and my walls and whatnot, and the guy's name was Rafael Sanchez from Ross Solar, who was at my house today, and he had me scan and send him my Con Ed bills, and he said, "Why is your electricity bill so low?" And I started to laugh, in case anybody was wondering.
Excellent.
Yes, so I thought you would
That's
like
a good
hearing.
complaint to have.
Yes, he says, your energy bill's unusually low.
Good.
Excellent. Bob has been a very good guinea pig for our energy efficiency and now solar program, so thank you. Yes, why don't I pass it along? Did you have some announcements?
Yes. So the Ossining Rotary Club and the Westchester Knicks will be hosting a car wash this Saturday, May 16th. It's a benefit for A.A. Nolan's Auto Repair, a very active man and business owner and family here in Ossining. They had a roof collapse and a lot of structural damage, and the insurance, as we all know, does not cover all the expenses to bring the business back up to speed. So that's going to be this Saturday, the 16th, from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at 2 Havel Street. There's going to be food and music and car washing, so I encourage you to stop by. And my last announcement is my monthly office hours will be next Thursday, May 21st, at Picante Cafe on Main Street from 9 a.m. to 10:30. All you have to do is stop by. No appointment is necessary, and I look forward to seeing all you there.
Trustee Cotton.
Yeah, I want to remind everybody that the Ossining Historic Cemeteries Conservancy is doing a Dale Cemetery gravestone cleaning this Saturday from 9 to 11. They're going to be cleaning a lot of very interesting gravestones at Dale Cemetery, and it's going to be in the Veterans section, which is at the main entrance. It's the first left, 104 Havel Street. For those of you that have never kind of witnessed this, these gravestones literally haven't been touched, I would say, for 100+ years, and you can't even see the writing on them. And some of the writing is quite ornate and detailed. But through the cleaning process, the gravestones come to light and come to life, and it's amazing the stories that they tell. So if you want to do something great for our cemeteries and learn something about our history, it's a great opportunity, and it's outdoors. The cemetery is beautiful. So I recommend that's this Saturday from 9 to 11 at Dale Cemetery. Again, it's in the Veterans section, and you can get there off of Havel Street.
And it sounds like you're doing something special in this case also for our veterans.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For sure. Yep.
Trustee DeRaio?
Yes. Phillips Memorial Hospital Center is having a blood drive tomorrow, May 13th, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Ossining Public Library in the Boudarge Theater. They want me to remind you that you should drink plenty of water, 16 to 32 ounces of water prior to donation, and avoid caffeine before you give blood. Make sure you bring photo ID. I'm not sure exactly why, but they want that before they want your blood. James Trapasso is the contact, 914-941-2416, extension 327, or jtrapasso at WLSmail.org.
Trustee Quesada, did you have any announcements? Well, I know something that is that happened earlier this evening. Perhaps you want to speak about the ceremony that many of us attended earlier this evening at the courthouse. All right, you can do that at the end. All right. Stay tuned.
Just a little
All
bumper
right.
there, a little teaser for the end of the meeting.
But I think you were going to mention this 5K this weekend.
There is.
So
I don't know if you can still sign up to run. The Clearview School is hosting a 5K in the village this Sunday. Begins at 9 o'clock.
and support.
Good, absolutely. Cheer on all of the folks who are helping with this fundraiser for our neighbors, the Clearview School. So, it starts at 9 a.m., and I believe they start right down at Market Square area? Or, no, they're at the rec center. They start at the rec center.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so
That's a run
Second
5
year.
miles.
5K
Run,
is like
walk,
just over
whatever.
3.
Yeah.
And it's
3 miles.
Yeah. Did you get your registration in that time?
No, there's no running for me. There's occasionally there's a mosey, sometimes there's a lumber, but there's not a lot of running. No.
Okay. Madam Manager.
Okay, so the first item on tonight's agenda is the annual Summerfest program, and John Girolamo from the Chamber's here to talk about the proposal. You've all received an updated draft this afternoon, I believe. Okay. John, do you want to join us? It's scheduled this year for August 1st, and I think...
That's correct, August 1st. I'd like to introduce Jacqueline Beltran. We call her Jackie. One of my team members. I have 2 other team members.
On this one.
I have 2 other team members as well, Sarah Metler and Dana Mealy, and all these women I've been involved with other events that I've done. They're professionals, they know what to do, and they're Ossining residents, and they really want to help out with this event.
Before you start, I just wanted to say one thing. This event is very special to me. I don't know if many of you know, or those who are watching. I founded Ossining Summerfest in summer 2010 with my business that I began in 2008 right here in downtown Ossining. And the support that we have gotten and The collaboration from the Chamber of Commerce and our village and residents and businesses has been phenomenal. And this night is important to me because I get to pass a torch on to a co-professional, Johnny G, and a great organization that has really helped me for the past 10 years, the Chamber, to continue it on. So I wish you the best of luck. I'm very excited for the 6th year, and thank you.
Thank you, Omar. As I was saying, these 3 women, I've done a lot of events with them. They're moving along in their careers. They're going to be famous someday, and they're going to take me with them. I'm excited to take over this event because it has always been my dream to have an original music event in Ossining. So the bands that I am choosing are all somehow related to Ossining, and they play original music, with the exception of Mike and Miriam Risco. We have to have them because, they're the other cornerstone of music. On one side, they're the other. And they'll be performing as well. But it's great original music. I've always been my dream to do that. We'll hit a couple of slides here. The Summerfest is local independent. One-night summer festival celebrates and features music, dance, food, and drink. Celebrate, experience, and discover. Ossining Summerfest transforms Ossining's downtown to a true memorable experience for teens and adults. We're changing it up a little bit this year. It's going to be a little less of a little kid event and more of an adult event. About 3,000 people come on and off throughout the night. The Chamber, of course, has sponsored us, and the board has approved the sponsorship. And we kind of use the Chamber for a lot of the services and materials that we need. We give free business listings and specials on our website for voluntary participating businesses. And we subcontract to about 10 different businesses for labor and services for production, preparation, things like that. We need the community's involvement, and the community has been involved and has embraced the event. And everybody comes, all ages. I say it's geared towards adults and teens. You can bring the kids too, because there's nothing that's going to be inappropriate in any way. And it's a one-day music festival, and they're going to have some ethnic food and some good vendors and things like that. Vendors have been calling me already. When Summerfest? The musical community in Westchester has already been asking about Summerfest. I was at the bowling alley Monday night, and somebody come up, when are you going to do Summerfest? Our producers and the team, we decorate, we clean, we add some flowers, some nice lighting, welcome signage to the downtown area. These are some of the places that we market: Journal News, the Daily Ossining, the Patch, the Peak, Instagram. We have our own website. We have our own YouTube channel, the Examiner, Westchester Magazine. Everybody says, come to Summerfest that night. The event is Saturday, August 1st, with a rain date of Sunday, August 2nd. It's not going to rain. We expect about 3,500 people from 5 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. The bulk of the attendance is between 8 and 10. There's about 20 performers in total, 4 to 6 acts. I'm opening up with a duo called Ain't No Daisy, which is from a movie. And they're an acoustic duo, 2 guys, and of course Mike and Miriam Risco. And we have Silver and Lead will be performing, and Deadweight Burden will be performing. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm so excited. I can't wait. We have up to 15 vendors in 10 by 10 spaces. We will have 3 restrooms placed and labeled. That's our website. We will take care of all the county and state permits with regards to food preparation, alcoholic beverage, vending, things like that. It's going to be in Market Square. We are not going to close any streets like we did last year. We're not going to use that big stage. We're going to use the Market Square stage. So everything will be self-contained within Market Square. There'll be no need to close Spring Street, no need to close Main Street. Once again, it's Saturday. It starts at 5, ends at 10:30. We say we close the parking lot at 6 a.m. It's normally closed for the farmers market anyway. And we allow the farmers market to use our tents that we set up. That's kind of a picture in case you forgot what Market Square looks like. And that's another view of it. And there's some of the flowers and things like that. The stage at Market Square for performances, and we'll have professional-style tents installed at Market Square. Everybody liked our tents last year. People talked about our tents on social media all the time because they were kind of decorative and nice and things like that. We'd like to use the electricity for the stage and a small number of booths. I don't think we're going to have any small rides. We haven't really decided on that yet. We cleaned it up. We hired somebody to clean it up. We would like the village to provide us with some garbage pails. We'll have the staff, and we will have the bags to put in it. And if they could just blow the parking lot with, the leaf blowers and make it kind of like nice the day before. And we'd like to put a banner in between Market Square's flagpoles, a large banner on the Main Street Clock Building, a banner across Croton Avenue, and down at the village side of Lewis Angle Waterfront Park, which I like to call PAL Beach since I'm involved with the PAL. We'd like to put it down there. And we have a full event liability insurance policy. I have a legitimate company, Johnny GJ Entertainment LLC, and I am insured with through the National Association of Mobile Entertainers. That's how I have my insurance, and that's where I'll get all the additional riders. And then we'll also take care of all the permits and the fees and the communication with the police and the fire and the EMS and all of that. We will coordinate all of that. That's why I got 3 helpers. That's kind of a layout of Market Square. The stage area is going to be there. We're going to have Tanapas or someone else having beer and wine and food, and the vendors will go on that left side where the Chase Bank area is. And that's basically the whole setup is all going to be enclosed in there. That's our QR. So once we get our website up and operational, you can QR us and find out and go to our website. We also have a hashtag, OSF. And that's a picture of what we had last year. That was actually, we closed the street and we used that big stage. We're eliminating that and all of those vendors this year. We're going to move everything into Market Square. And that was the promotion for the 5th annual. And we have some testimonials. Catherine Borgia liked it. She had a wonderful time. I remember. And that's the Odega Wine Shop was doing a wine tasting that night, and that's actually the stage that we're going to be using. I found it was a little scattered last year with regards to not using the Market Square stage and the stage going sideways. People wanted to sit and listen to the bands, couldn't see the bands. That's why I think it'll be better if it's enclosed within Market Square. I think the bands will really get the attention then. We'd like to have some interns. Anybody has any high school interns for credit to help us out, or college interns, or hospitality crew workers? We'll give them an hourly pay that day. Just give us send them resume to 2 Church Street, which is the Chamber of Commerce, and that's also the admin office for Ossining Summerfest. And that was the belly dancing team. They were great. People loved them, and I actually bounced that sword on my bald head at the end of the night. Dawn Perez loved it. Comes every year. Can't wait for it again. And there's some more pictures of, people, kids performing and people performing and stuff like that. And there's our hashtag OSF, Ossining Summerfest. That's the telephone number. We're all over social media. As many of you know, I'm involved a lot with social media, do a lot of sharing and things like that. So that's going to continue with Summerfest. And that's it, unless you want to learn about drugs and a Miranda warning. It's also on the same zip drive. Are there any questions?
Well, let's get back to our seats and see my colleagues have any questions.
Yeah. So it looked like from the diagram you had some chairs on the stage area.
I couldn't figure out how to get those off the diagram.
Oh, okay.
It's going to be the stage.
That's very fun.
That's your choice, but whatever.
That's going to be the stage.
That's the stage. That's what I thought. It just,
some really great bands. Excellent band that does like new wave type stuff called Father Jones. Mm-hmm. Drummer's really professional. Played with Jessica Lynn and other people like that. Mm-hmm. Really great bands. You're going to love the bands.
Can't wait.
Any other questions?
I just wanted to just say that I'm so glad that this is going to continue. Trustee Herrera's stepped up to be with us, and I was somewhat concerned about if it was going to go on without him, and obviously it is, and so I'm very pleased. This is great. I'm a big fan of this event, so I'm glad everything got sorted out.
I'm kind of glad he stepped up because I can do what I want to do now.
Oh, okay. Well,
I just have a couple of questions, and for the board. So this is scheduled for August 1st, and I was hoping we can get all the paperwork nailed and down and completed and ready by the week before. Is that possible? If you can get it into us, say like the 24th.
Sure.
That's the Friday before.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so July 24th just helps get everyone in line and ready for it, and make sure everything's in order. And then also, you had mentioned.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I would just want to make sure that Chief Burton and all the other emergency services, that all that stuff is also coordinated, communications gone to them, all that stuff's done.
Yes.
And okay.
One of that was actually kind of a good segue for my next point. In the past, the board had asked for some kind of security. I think that was primarily for crossing the street, but I don't know if there is anything planned.
We hire private security because we serve alcohol.
Okay.
The reason we do not hire police officers is because they're not supposed to work where alcohol is being served.
Okay.
So we hire private security just to keep an eye on what's going on with regards to the alcohol.
Okay.
In the past, we have hired officers to cross the street. We didn't think that was necessary. If you want, we could do that. Being that we're not closing the street, we didn't know if that was necessary.
Yeah, it's all now contained to the one area, so it may not be necessary. I think before the concern was people going back and forth. And, okay. And then the other thing was in the proposal it mentioned parking would be at 2 Church Street. Has arrangements been made with the owner for that?
Yes, the owner is okay with it.
Okay.
It's primarily, I should have worded it better. That's where my vendors are going to park.
Okay.
The bands are going to probably park up there, so I could make street parking available for the guests.
Okay. That makes sense.
That would, a van will unload, move their car up there. Vendors will unload, just like we do for the village fair.
Yeah.
Should have been more specific about that.
And okay, so then I'll deal with Mr. Girolamo with regard to coordination for the time the lots close and things like that with the police department. So the board has no objections to this?
it looks like Lori Lee had a question.
I just have to remind that there's a standard letter agreement that will need to go to the chamber because the not-for-profit is actually the licensee of the Market Square. So I'll get a standard letter out, as I do with the Green Market as well. So
Okay, I think we have one on file. I'll ask the executive assistant. Executive assistant, we have one on file? Maybe.
I'll get one right over to you.
Okay.
I'm not inclined to say that there needs to be any officers that are hired, but I assume you're going to talk to the police department anyway, and as you describe the new setup, if they confirm that, then I would be supportive of the as described by Mr. Girolamo. Trustee Quesada, Herrera, Durayo, we're good?
All right. Thank you. Thanks for coming out this
Thank
evening.
you very much.
We'll work with our
Nice to
staff
meet you.
and the
Looking forward to
chamber.
Yes.
Another
Very much
successful
so.
event.
In case somebody would like to look at it.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you very much.
that.
We've marked our calendars, August 1st, Saturday.
August 1st.
Looking
Not gonna
forward to it. It's not
Okay.
going to rain.
But if it does, we have a rain date for the second. So the next item on the agenda is the Sidewalk Cafe application for Keenan House. And I believe Erda, I'm going to mess up the name, is here this evening. They applied for a sidewalk application. The department has reviewed it, didn't have any objection. But as part of it, he needs a waiver. So that's really what we're here for, because the manager's office would approve the application. This is just for the waiver. He has submitted all the required paperwork from the board, and we see no reason why he shouldn't be granted this waiver.
Is it
Did
any
you want to
different
come
than
up and
last year?
I'd like to invite him up to the podium so he could introduce
So this
himself.
Is, this is an annual renewal of something they've been doing, and there are no changes, correct?
Correct. Is that
Okay.
is that
So
correct?
we don't need a whole
Yes.
story.
Can I get the question again?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just saying that this is exactly the same as last year.
Yes, exactly.
It worked really well last year,
Yes.
and so I don't think there's much to discuss unless you guys got questions.
Does anybody have any questions or comments? For our
Yeah,
guest?
I just wanted to thank Keenan House for being the second one in downtown to apply for a permit and to aid us in creating that outdoor ambience. And thank you for
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
for your work.
Thank you.
It's really wonderful. And put that duck breast special on the regular menu.
Thank you so much.
And let me just refresh my memory. The reason why a waiver is required in this instance is because our code has a regulation about the proximity of seating to a tree well. Is that correct? And so
The conditions of the chapter on sidewalk cafe permits, one of the conditions are you need to have a setback of a minimum of 4 feet from any obstruction in the sidewalk. So as a result of the existence of namely a handicap parking space directly in front of his restaurant, that he'll need the waiver. And the waiver is simply just requiring him to send certified mail to his neighbors and let them know, and also to provide us with a scaled drawing which shows the actual setbacks, so we're aware that he can meet the minimum standards for emergency access. And
great.
things like
And the
that.
reason why we have this waiver opportunity is because we can look on a case-by-case basis and recognize that the proximity to these obstructions is no reason to not have it. And so we were able to recognize in this case that this is a wonderful opportunity for your business and our community. Thank you very much for doing it.
Thank you.
And the reason why we have to do it annually is because we need the updated insurance and the information. So it's a seasonal permit issued by the village manager's office, and when it doesn't meet the setbacks, then it comes here and we have a little conversation in addition to. So it runs through the end of October, the season.
Very nice.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Looking forward to dining outdoors.
Okay. Moving right along. Our next item on tonight's agenda is a cabaret license for Tierras Tropicales. And we have with us, I think he's Claudio. Is he? Oh, I couldn't see you.
There he is.
Would you like to come before? So this is an annual application. This has been reviewed by the building department, the police department. They've approved it. The only item we may want to talk to, we may want to discuss with Mr. Quesada, was I think last year we approved it until 1 o'clock, and this year he's asking if it could go until 2. So that's a question for the board, and if it this is something that we have to put on for resolution, different from the sidewalk waiver. So if we can come to decision tonight, we'll put it on for adoption next week.
Are there any cabaret licenses in the village that currently go until 2 a.m.?
I don't believe so. The issue was is the areas where these cabarets are located are often adjacent to or under residential units, and the sound carries. So in order to try to ensure the best quality of life for the residents and try to make it worthwhile for the businesses, we try to come somewhere in between.
What has the police said about the prospective additional hour?
They weren't asked that specifically. They're asked to review. They pull all the calls and they make sure that the owner is in compliance with certain things, but it's not specifically their opinion on the additional hour.
Have there been complaints since we gave them the license last year? If you don't know, that's okay.
They had the approval last year.
Did they have the license last
Yeah, they did. Yeah. So any
complaints would be included with the submission.
Yeah, so there's a printout of any of the calls, and the thing with this, you have to remember sometimes the parking lot. If anything happens in the parking lot, it's sometimes attributed to Mr. Quesada's establishment. So you received them in your packet, and the police didn't. It would seem that they didn't deem anything excessive or.
Okay.
You know.
Will they have to do the same thing as Keenan House, i.e. send letters to the neighbors asking if it's okay?
That's not part of, no. We don't
It's
have
not?
that as part of our.
Because I'd be curious to know what the people who live there feel about having it open until 2. I don't care. I'm up then anyway. But it's not by my house.
Do you live above? Do you live above the restaurant? Yeah.
What happened? He lives upstairs.
Yeah.
So it's going to annoy you? Being open to do? Because if not, it's okay with me then.
Bob.
There are calls that have been attached. If you look at the call, there's some noise complaints that have come in. This one appears to be before.
Most of these, the only one I think is, there's only one for 2014.
Yeah.
Excuse me, we have in next to my lake, we have the bar to the Atlantic Bar.
Mm-hmm.
That sometimes they're confused with the lot of noise.
Mm-hmm. So that's why, yeah, that was kind of a little bit,
Yeah.
see, Atlantic and the parking lot, and a lot of times they'll attribute it to that
Does
address.
Atlantic currently have or has had a cabaret?
No,
Okay.
they do not,
No,
yeah.
we have no issue.
So the only police report we have for Mr. Casada's establishment was an alcohol permit, but I think that was correct.
And that was corrected, yeah.
Yeah.
So just so I understand, the license that they've had up until now, what are the hours that they're
Until 1.
right? So right now it's
Until
Friday and Saturday, or
Just Friday and Saturday.
Friday and Saturday
Till 1.
till 1, and they're asking to go to 2.
Yeah.
And there hasn't been any problem other than the one not related to cabaret noise police report in the
not
past
that
year.
we have, yeah.
I mean, I'm inclined to be supportive of it. I would be curious, though. I mean, I guess we kind of have to make a decision tonight, but I would be curious to hear if, since the police department was not given that specific question, I would like to know what they think about the. I don't know what happens between 1 and 2 on Croton Avenue. So
What about
Conditional.
a provisional approval
But
pending
wait, no,
what the
but-
police department says?
But we this has to go on the resolution, you said. Sure.
Any-
So it's
Right.
not going to
If
happen
it's
until
changed.
next week.
If it's changed,
All
though,
right.
right?
Yeah.
So
okay. So
that
move
could
forward.
be something.
Yes.
Yeah,
That
sure.
if something changes, we can definitely make a decision next week when
Absolutely.
we can make the change.
Great.
Yes. We're
Now,
good.
Okay.
just for you guys to know, there's no relationship. Share the same name, just in case. So,
Okay,
but,
so
I
so
don't blame you anyway if something goes wrong.
thank you. That's
Trustee
fine.
Casada, did you have a comment or a question?
No.
Other than-
Actually, was
mean,
there, Chrissy, was there any other, in the past, with this particular application, was there ever at 2 o'clock in the morning and then it was reduced to 1 o'clock? Was
it
there
may
ever
have
there?
been several years ago. I think the board kind of cut back as a policy because it was actually, I think, started on Main Street because a lot of the businesses, it just kind of carries right down the hill, and they just made the policy to go across the board and close everything earlier for private.
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's my opinion that I'm not sure about the benefit of the extra hour. I mean, I sort of feel like, music ends at 1 and then people stay at the bar. I mean, your bar is open later than 1 o'clock anyway, right?
Yes, but
Yeah.
it's low. The low. The music gets, the loud music is until 1 or 2. Sometimes until 2, sometimes it's close early when it's 1.
Well, it can't go
Yeah,
past
they
1,
did.
though, right?
Right. But, yeah.
So-
So you
But-
guys want to
but-
make it to.
Usually
usually
the next
it's the
part they stay until 4, but it's loud. Sometimes confused, say that's the restaurant, but the restaurant sometimes close earlier.
What type of music are you playing?
The Ecuadorian music, the merengue, bachata, yeah, that's 1 or 2 singers.
And is it electrical instruments, or are they mostly
no, just
acoustic?
sometimes 1 guitar, that's all.
So there's no drums or bass or anything
No,
like
no.
No, it's a singer
Yeah.
with a guitar.
The CD music with the people will sing guitar.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm thinking you got a full
No.
full band with horns, the whole thing.
Band,
No, it's not that.
No.
I'm okay with the conditional approval as Trustee
Right.
Casada
Yeah.
said.
So move forward with putting the resolution on the work agenda with an expectation that we are likely to approve it, but we would all like to hear the thoughts from the police department
Okay.
on extending it
So
to
we
1 hour. If there's-
should we
if there's
draft
a
it for the
consideration we're not
1
aware of.
o'clock and then consider it for 2 o'clock?
No, put it on for 2 o'clock.
Okay.
And then if
We
we
will change
if we
it.
need to change it because the police weigh in and make us think differently, then we will.
I
Okay.
agree. That's good.
So we'll put this on the agenda for next week for,
Yeah.
to be voted on.
Next week?
Yeah, and we will just research it with the board. We're-
Yes, Wednesday, 7:30, but we'll be at the courthouse on
Courthouse.
Spring Street,
Okay.
88 Spring
Thank
Street.
you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
moving right along.
Okay. Yeah, so the next one is for the transportation agreement.
It's a renewal with the county. The county has standard reimbursement rates. This is just a renewal of an agreement that we have with the Department of Corrections to transport the prisoners to and from the courthouse on court dates. So this is a standard renewal for a period of time using the reimbursement rates provided by the county. I did send it down to the chief. He reviewed it and said everything appears to be in order, and I'd like to put this on for resolution for next week.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Any questions?
Nope.
Thank you.
Hey, wait.
Whoa.
No, I don't have a question.
Okay.
Speak up. This is like an auction. Yeah. Going once, going twice. So the next item on the agenda is our complete streets, and our village planner, Valerie Menastra, is here to talk about the update and the next steps. Valerie.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi, Valerie.
All right, so as the board knows, we passed a complete streets policy back in February, and since then you've asked the planning department and the legal department to look into implementation of the complete streets policy. So there's a number of different phases that this board can choose to implement the policy. And so I will, the first phase will deal with actually working the policy into our code. And so I'll turn that over to Lori Lee to speak a little bit about that. And then I'll go on with a couple other phases that the board can take into consideration for its complete streets implementation.
Inadvertently, the local law I drafted was left out of your packet, so that's why I ran upstairs a while ago and emailed to you. So
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
it's introductory local law number 3. What it does is it uses our existing code provisions and includes a recognition of and a requirement for projects that come forward that have a right-of-way component involved. When the context is appropriate to the issue of a street opening permit for streets and sidewalks, or for work in the streets and sidewalks and specifications and policies, and also for the subdivision of land that would include any work in the right-of-way. So I incorporated the language that we had researched on the policy itself and put it in where appropriate, and you can see that also Valerie and I had a quick conversation today, and what I'd like to do is expand the list and also perhaps include a recognition of the policy in the site plan criteria. So that would be a section 4, and then move the next section 4 down. So it would be in any street and sidewalk opening permits through the DPW and the planning board issues with the site plan review, and also the subdivision of land provisions. So that's where the code can be adapted.
Yeah, great.
So that would be, that is one step in the implementation of the complete streets policy. Another possible option, also in conjunction with the working into the village code, the Tri-State Transportation Campaign does walking audits. We did speak with Veronica Vanderpool about the walk-in audits. There is one potential walk-in audit that can be done in our downtown, which would be funded free of charge, because she has some grants that are specifically earmarked for those types of audits of complete streets in downtown areas. If the village were if the village were interested in looking at other additional neighborhoods, because that seemed to come up in some previous conversations I've had with the board, that those additional audits are $2,000 per audit. So one of the thoughts that we had at first was to maybe consider doing the free audit to see how that works in the downtown, to see how useful it is, and then to consider at that point in time if we wanted to expand that into particular neighborhoods, that we could do that.
Right.
I believe the audits themselves, we could effectively work out a date and time, and then we can work out some of the details, and we'll bring that back to the board if the board decides to move forward with that. Also, then the third phase, if you even wanted to get into this phase, because right now our policy deals with handling complete streets on a case-by-case basis, and refers to very specific, or refers to standards that are generally considered the industry standards for complete streets. If you wanted to take that a step further, the next thing you would have to do is actually create an implementation policy, which actually evaluates your right-of-ways, your streets, which streets need certain types of infrastructure, and all that actually requires now the village starting to have to expend some of its resources in order to do that. Most of the communities that have done some sort of implementation plan, all of them have hired outside consultants to do the plan, to look at the different streets, and then and this is just the plan itself, and then the next phase goes into the actual implementation, and then funding for those different capital improvements. At this point in time, I think with phase 1 and phase 2, I think that those are, I think that would get us to a certain point, and then at that point we can see how we want to continue, because I think we've already identified some other areas of complete streets like Route 9 that we wanted to look at. So it seems like we've been sort of identifying where we're considering problem areas and focusing on those. Other communities didn't really know where to start, and so they just sort of took a holistic approach and looked at their entire community. So that's an option as well, but again, that requires some sort of outlay of resources from the village, and would require hiring a consultant. So those are your options for the Complete Streets implementation.
Okay. I'll start with questions just because this is something that's near and dear to my heart, but please others weigh in as appropriate. The first phase, which is incorporating it into our code, I saw your face. I don't know what that meant, Paul. If DPW weighed in on the adding the complete streets to the code, you did. Okay. So
Yeah, I mean,
is there any comment that you want to make on how that might impact the site plans and the sidewalks or whatever?
Apologize for the takes.
All right. Oh, I'm reading too much into it then. Okay. Okay. Good. All right. Good, because obviously it was very clear that it was very clear that Village Planner and Corporation Council, and I know you've been working on this in many for a long time. So
We did. I think one of these all came in and we sat down.
Great. Glad to hear it. And I think I see it as a very smart thing for us to take advantage of the free audit from the Tri-State Transportation Campaign, see what the tools are that we might learn from. And in my head, I am sure I have a lot of the same people on that list of who we would want to include in that walking audit. And Ingrid Richards and I participated in one of those programs when they did it in Tarrytown. And they split us up into 4 groups of like a dozen each. It was a huge collaboration of village officials, people who are appointed to the planning board. It was organized by TIAC, which is their version of the Environmental Advisory Council. There were a lot of community members coming at it from different directions. And so I would want us to take that same kind of inclusive approach and invite community members from a variety of perspectives to participate in that walking audit, and then see what we can do from there for the many neighborhoods that we all hear about where there are other complete streets concerns, and maybe we'll have learned enough to be able to do that in-house at that point. One other resource that I'd like to find a community member to volunteer for is Sustainable Westchester has a working group. It's a subcommittee of volunteers that is dedicated to transportation and specifically complete streets implementation, and it's run by I was, of course, on the steering committee for that, and it's run by 2 of the members who were on the steering committee, one of whom is now on the board of Sustainable Westchester. I think just one of them is. So any community members or a board member who would like to volunteer for that position, please reach out to me at Garrity@villageofossining.org and let me know, and I will gladly put you in touch with the folks there, or you can just learn more about it yourself at sustainablewestchester.org. And looking for their working groups or their subcommittees on transportation and complete streets. It's another opportunity to have somebody be involved integrally and to draw from the resources and the collective intellectual capital of the people who are really passionate about this from across the county. So, any other questions or comments for Village Planner?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Valerie, and I like free stuff. Believe me, if we can have a lot of that, I'd be glad to just bring more to our table. The concern that I have with the free part was that when you say downtown, describe downtown to me. What are we looking at? We're looking
I don't
from.
actually know. I mean,
Okay.
right now, I mean, because when we reached out to Veronica Vanderpool, I mean, we would have to sit down with her and kind of go through what does that mean. Not only we'll probably have to identify a particular area. Probably also have to, she'll tell us, how long the walking tour is, because I don't know if the one from Tarrytown actually was part of their free walking tour or whether it was one that they actually paid for.
Mhm.
So, we'll get more information
Yeah.
as to that.
Because, we are paying a consultant to do a study for the Main Street and the Spring Street intersection. So I'm wondering, because we are doing some street studies already on that area, and we actually be going beyond within the Spring Street. So I'm not sure if that is going to be part of it.
Well,
And,
yeah,
and
well,
what is the
clearly,
difference
right.
between those two? If there's going to be a difference between those two, because I wouldn't want to get something for free that we're already paying for.
Well, no,
So
no, you're going to
that's
say
that's
that
what I'm saying. So I know it's different, but that's what I want to make sure.
One is not
Correct.
going to be as technical.
Got it.
But we will also share with trustee campaign the information that we're going to be moving
Correct.
forward with in that intersection area.
Okay.
So, but I don't anticipate that intersection being the main focus since we already are
Okay.
sort of
That's
working on it. I mean,
correct.
clearly they'll be aware
I'll
of it.
address some of
But
the
then
issues,
you have
yeah.
other, you have other areas in the downtown that would
Yeah.
probably be, wise to look at.
So, when that happens, how much is a study like that will cost us to if we're to look on other areas within the village that we are concerned as
You
well?
mean village-wide or
Yes.
just, okay. So
How much a
know,
study like that will be?
Well, I know
An idea.
some of the other communities that dealt with like doing their implementation plans and stuff like that. Now, some of them were smaller communities, but I think they were on order of like between $40,000-$50,000, something like that.
Just the study alone.
Yeah, well, you know what it is? It's not just the stuff. I mean, they actually take a look at your sidewalks. They look at your street widths. They start identifying where your areas where you would want to put bike lanes, where you don't want to put bike lanes, what even with your intersections. So it's a pretty in-depth study.
How long does it take, something like that? Do you have
I
an
don't
idea?
really know. I mean, I know some of them. Well, it depends on who spearheads it, and so some of them have taken like about a year because there's a lot of public outreach and stuff like that. Some less.
Okay.
But there's only been a handful of communities that have actually undergone that. type
Within
of work.
Westchester?
None in Westchester that I know of.
Okay.
Trustee Durayo?
No, I'm good.
Oh, okay. Trustee Cobbin? Any questions or comments? Trustee Herrera?
Yes, I actually am a very big fan of the Complete Streets policy, and as I've mentioned before, I'm very happy that it was adopted in the county and now at a local level. And when I see the word implementation, I like it because that means that we have pledged to actually implement and actually do what we have adopted. It's not empty legislation. So with that being said, I do like the free walking audit. I would try to see how much we could take from that with our own personnel and see if we could continue it on our own. I can't promise that, but that would be ideal, right? And then as far as the possible third implementation step and phase, am I at a stretch to say that internally we can't analyze our own sidewalks and our own village-owned streets when it comes to just basic implementation? I mean, unless the board decides that we want to, do a major unless we decide that we're gonna, invest in the full implementation, whether it's this year, next year, or in phases, or however it goes about. I guess my question is, do we? I feel like before we go, and I hear the word consultants and I cringe because we just don't have the,
They're expensive.
Yeah, but they are necessary. I do get it, and I've listened a lot to Paul and Valerie, and I do know that some projects and some studies are necessary that we can't do on our own. So I do get that, but I just kind of just want to know a bit more before we even look at that option.
Right. Well, I'll turn it over to Paul to speak on the technical piece, but I can tell you on a plan like this, I mean, to some extent, some of it could be done in-house. Yes, you do have the ability for the, I have the background to be able to do some of that stuff. The assistant planner would have the background. Do we have the time to do it? And I can say absolutely no. So that is, unless for some reason that is the only thing you want to focus on in the next year, it's just impossible with the workload that we have in the department to even think about taking on something like that. So when I bring consultants to the board, some of it deals with, yes, you would, they also have the computer software and some of the more up-to-date programs that we don't have in our office, and that's also the benefit as well. But a lot of it is really just the time management issue. And I don't know if you want to talk about some of the technical aspects.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Prior to adoption of Complete Streets, I had worked with Valerie through the planning board for a developer when he comes in, and when they do a right-of-way laid-in project, we have implemented pedestrian-friendly development. Internally, when we do capital projects that don't necessarily or did not prior to this resolution have a Complete Streets mandate, we did implement Complete Streets components, and I'll give you some examples for touch and feel. When we did some of the sidewalk work up to Dorner and Claremont, when that was redone by us, we made that very wide because there was a concern that the prior sidewalk that was there was not only dilapidated but narrow, so we did that wider for the students. For the sidewalks that we did in the downtown for all of our CDBG projects, really that extended from uptown all the way down to the train station, we added, where it didn't exist, that brick buffer that just by nature of how it's constructed and what your eye sees, it diverts you away from the curb line, so it's a little safer for pedestrians to walk because they're kind of pulled away from the road. It also kind of pulls the eye to the curb for the drivers too, and all new higher curbs, which make it safer and less likely that a car can jump the curb there. We've added guardrail, we've added additional lighting, we've added additional signage. We put all MUTCD signage where all the pedestrian thoroughfares exist. We added crosswalks. The newest one is down on Secor when we noticed that was a bus stop when we did that streetscape there. So we do things internally presently, and as we do a little bit more than a slab replacement here and there, if we go anywhere near an intersection, we always do the intersections and make them ADA accessible with the appropriate pitches for pedestrian wheelchair access, with the truncated domes, which is those domes that are inlaid into the concrete pattern at the ADA rampage for detection for blind people with their walking sticks. So there are a lot of components that we do implement in-house already, and we'll continue to do so. And as we do large tracts of assessed sidewalks, like we're probably going to do in the next few months on Upper Croton, we will take what exists now. We will assess the sidewalk that fronts the properties, but the sidewalk improvements that we make that is not accessible, i.e. the ADA ramps and the curbs, etc., will all be done, and where we can, we're going to put that green strip in there, or a brick strip if it's downtown, for that same pedestrian component. So we do a lot of that now, and that's draw your attention to that. But on a much larger scale, like presently right now, Valerie and I just met with Ginsburg today on our bi-weekly meeting that we have with them, and we're going to try to implement some components there when they come to you with the Westerly streetscape in a very short time. So, yeah, a lot of that's ongoing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, that's great. I just wanted, you just said a lot, and that's great because the residents can see that even before we adopted the policy, our own departments were initiating, and I do want the public to know that our department is capable to do things to an extent until we have a capital, project that we do or something.
One final request or thought that I would put in your head as you're talking to Valerie Vanderpool about the scope of the walking audit. Somebody brought to my attention that what would be really ideal is if we could figure out ways to better connect for pedestrians some of our hubs where people gather. Not just, obviously, our downtown Market Square area, connecting that to our library, which we know that intersection is a challenge. And I think it may come up in discussion with some of your future items on tonight's agenda. But also like the community center. There is actually a pretty direct pathway, but people wouldn't necessarily recognize it. So if we could include that in a walking tour, if it can extend to those points to help people, when you're at point A and you just, picked your kid up from swimming lesson, wouldn't it be nice to just take this really quick walk to downtown? You might not realize how incredibly directly you can reach Main Street.
Right.
So, that I think, speaks to our overall goal of drawing people to our downtown for our economic revitalization. So hopefully it extends that far. Thank you. All right.
Okay.
I think Valerie's up next.
Yeah. CFA grants, Valerie?
Did you want to do? Yeah, we can do. Why don't I just I'm going to just sort of talk about, because the next one's also Route 9, I think, after that. So I'm going to sort of talk, because there's I'm going to talk about the various grants and we can possibly submit, and then ultimately I'm going to segue into planning department project prioritization, so that we can sort of focus in on what projects we're going to focus on first, and then kind of work our way through the year. So the next rounds of the consolidated funding applications have been opened, and they are due July 31st. There are 3 projects that we're recommending you to submit grants for. The first project is Route 9, dealing with alterations or amendments to, which would encompass I think we were really honing in on between Church Street and Route 133 corridor, to look at the intersections there and maybe improving design, pedestrian pedestrian movement, as well as also looking at the timing of the lights and the crosswalks. So there are 2 Empire State Development grants that we can submit for, although I will say both of them, are going to be, I guess, it's going to be very competitive. One requires a share of 50% of the project costs, including the 10% in a project cost in the form of equity. So it can't be borrowed money; it actually has to be equity up front. And then then there's another grant which requires that they will pay no more than 20% of the cost, so we have to do an 80% match with 10% of that being equity. So those are the 2 grants for the CFA dealing with Route 9. I would suggest, if we're interested in moving forward with those, that we put in for about $100,000 grant to do the design and design and engineering work for those intersections, and so that would be the first grant. The second project would focus on the North Malcolm Street, the sewer relining replacement project. Now I keep hearing about this project over and over again. We are now eligible for CDBG funding through the state. The Urban County Consortium no longer exists. We have, this North Malcolm Street project was also identified as that part of that CHIPS funding, but as of right now, I think that there's some issues with the actual releasing of the funding through the county, from what I've been gathering. So I'm not so sure how quickly that money is going to come to pass. And even though the state has a fund available or something like that, again, we haven't heard anything on that money. So instead of waiting for maybe one of these programs to come up, I would suggest maybe submitting for CDBG through the state for the North Malcolm project.
Could you clarify for me, because we had that very excited phone call from Nita Lowy's office about the state putting millions of dollars in a lockbox for communities just like ours, and now that money may not be happening, but there's another opportunity through the state?
The thing is, we haven't heard anything from the state on that, and so it could be another 6 months. We're still waiting on certain things from the state. Even we're waiting on a 2013 grant from the state dealing with the hazard mitigation grant program. So the difficulty is guessing when the state is actually going to come, because even though the money was there, they still were going to have to create a program and a grant process and all that before they actually.
So this grant process exists through the state.
Yes,
So we
it
should do
is.
it
It's
now.
part of the consolidated funding application process.
And so but the other funding that could be available at
Right.
some time, we
Yes.
would have more projects that we would
do.
want
We
to
do have
submit
more
at that
projects,
time.
That's correct.
So let's do this.
Okay.
Yeah, just before you move on, can you do me a favor and email the board the current grants that we're still waiting either to receive or to hear a response from,
Sure.
either at a county or state level? That way, as a board, we could follow up with our reps and see what's going on.
Sure.
Thank you.
We know of one big one.
Good.
I'll send that. I'll email Christina and she'll.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to express my my deep disappointment in state government. That's just sad. I mean, that they're sitting on money that's been budgeted and they can't figure out how to give it to us. I mean, that's insane.
It's
what do
very
they do in Albany
frustrating.
anyway? You know, if municipal government people were in Albany, stuff would get done.
But have you ever
People would
been
be
up there?
knocking on our doors saying why stuff didn't happen. Just makes me crazy.
John.
That's all I'm going to say.
You have to go-
Duly noted.
You have to go and look at it. And you go to the state assembly, everybody talks at the same time. Nobody gives up back to the chair or yields the floor ever, so they talk over each other the whole time. And nobody's really listening to what anybody else is saying. As a result, nothing ever gets done. It's very clear. You would hate it there.
Yeah. Again, I don't know what our chances are for getting the CDBG funding, but it does fall. They are specifically highlighting infrastructure projects
Right.
as part of the CDBG grant, so it does fall directly in line with that.
Perfect.
Now, the CFA funding, it looked like from the letter there were very specific types of projects that they were looking to fund, many of which are not really relevant to what we're looking to do, but it seemed like the revitalization of downtowns was the one that, the category that we could tie into best in our application for the
Right.
Route 9
Yeah.
That's
engineering.
Exactly, right. That's why we thought we could move forward with the Empire State Development grants for the Route 9. Yes, that's why we figured it's that downtown revitalization. They're also honing in on areas that are a little bit economically distressed, so that also works in that particular area. You know, and then we're hoping we'll get DOT support as well, so that would help with having like another agency support. That
Right.
Oh, so as part of the application process, you'd be reaching out to the Department of Transportation
Well,
to.
right, I'm going to, right, we would.
I
talk
don't know what the
about
order
guys
of
to
this
try to-
is. Like
right.
they would say that this is worthy of exploring and
Well, we would clearly want, I mean, my thought is that at some point, somebody might talk, you know, some agency's probably going to refer to another agency and ask them if they would be in support of this particular project. So clearly we'd want to let them know that we're planning to submit a grant in for that and hoping that, you know, we would be able to get their support to some extent.
And was that the 50-50 or the 80-20?
Both of them are both through the Empire State Development.
Plus 10 are both, right? Plus 10
Yes,
equity.
That's correct. That's correct.
I'm sorry.
So
What
there's
do those
two
numbers
separate
just mean?
grants
What?
in the Empire State Development that we could apply for. One is a 50% match. One is they'll pay up to 20%, but both of them require 10% equity match.
In addition.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
So,
Could you just tell? I'm really having trouble. It's $100,000. It's $100,000
we might
cost.
have to pay $80,000 for. One we might have to pay $50,000 for.
Okay, that's what I thought.
But both of them require. They both are saying that they want a 10% equity from the applicant. So and it specifically says they don't want it as borrowed money. Now I still need to take a look to see if for some reason if we bond for this money or something, whether they're going to consider that borrowed money.
So we would
but
need
I
to come up
believe-
with $10,000
Right.
cash,
Operating money.
and then
Right.
40 to 70
Right.
grand in some kind of in-kind contribution.
No.
No.
No, bond.
That would be
Bond.
bonded money.
Okay.
So
Not in kind.
is that 10% an
I like in-kind.
refundable deposit?
Who, you know, I mean,
Okay.
No,
I'm not being
no,
sarcastic. I'm not very
it's-
serious.
They want. I guess they want because this is not only goes to private. You know, it's not even. But it goes to private companies. They want equity. They want to see a 10%
Right.
equity.
So we just have to earmark $10,000.
So
we don't have
we
to give it
just
to them.
give it.
No, we don't give it
No.
to them. We just demonstrate that we
Oh,
have
we
it on
have
hand.
it. Oh,
if we
okay.
are
'Cause that
grant-
would've been a
awarded
problem
the
for me.
grant.
it's a budget item.
Yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't cost us $10,000 to apply.
Just making sure.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
okay.
Okay. Sorry for the confusion. The CDBG grant does require a match. I am still trying to find out because I didn't really see and I'm going to contact them to see if it's a 50, because in the past it's always been a 50% match, but it doesn't seem to really define that, so I'm going to find out if it's 50% or if it's just, or if it can be a little bit less than 50%. But in the past we were always assuming to do a 50% match for that for the North Malcolm Street sewer relining and replacement. And then the third project is the Broadway Bridge repair project. As you know, this project is potentially going to be a costly project. Paul has estimates of about $1.2 million. There is a grant from the state that really specifically targets the heritage areas and also historic buildings and structures, and so this would fall nicely into that. And that particular grant will pay up to $500,000 for a particular project. So I would like to submit for that, saying that we would match that particular project for the Broadway Bridge. You know,
Do we have an estimate?
Yeah,
I don't know what $500,000 means toward the bridge.
Slightly less than half.
No. $500,000. We could apply for $500,000 in funding, but we would still have to match it with $500,000.
So if it's $1 million bridge,
Yes.
we
Right.
come up with $500,000,
Right.
and they
And
come
they-
up with $500,000.
That's right.
It's not $1 million bridge repair,
No,
though, is it? It is $1 million.
It's
$1.2
million.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I'm having trouble with
And
numbers tonight.
just from my recollection, that's the project that we knew had the possibility of increasing and has because of numerous reasons throughout the project, but it was budgeted for how much originally?
No, this is
No.
Or is it-
That was
This-
never
or is it-
budgeted.
that's why I'm asking.
We became aware of
We
this.
became aware of it because of the work that we did in the.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah,
that's the
you
recent one
just
because of
catch
what
us up.
happened.
Yes.
Okay.
So give the thumbnail.
If you could
first.
just,
Walk.
yeah.
Give us the history.
Okay, hello again.
Thank you.
When we were able to gain complete access down there and actually able to clear everything out and see what existed underneath that bridge, it became apparent that there was sections of that bridge that were in disrepair. So how we decided to proceed, because we did not want to undertake two capital projects concurrently, was that we were going to use some of the contingency funding existing in that capital project for the sewer lining, protection, and river walk, and put a DOT specified netting under there that would allow the folks to continue to work and also limit any potential falling debris from hitting anybody that would be down below. So that's in place, and we paid for it at an existing project, and we put an earmark in next year's capital presentation to you all for a Broadway Bridge rehabilitation. I could tell you that the $1.2 million estimate that we had created for us was done with some pretty thorough investigation. We did some test pits on the bridge, and we also did a pretty detailed inspection from underneath, and there was also an historical study on the construction of the bridge. A lot of the records, let me start over. The estimate that we got from the engineering firm that gave it to us is also the New York State certified bridge inspector for, I think they give it out in 5-year cycles. So this bridge is known to them. There's different components to that bridge too of an historical nature that have to be maintained. So that, kind of gives you a cost escalation based on conventional construction that, we have to kind of work into the estimates that were produced. But it was a fairly detailed estimate that includes complete reconstruction.
Right.
But just like every project, it could be a little more and a little less depending on some of your druthers being incorporated into the project. I've discussed it in a very broad brush preliminary way with Christina, and maybe you can do some things to even enhance that area while you're doing this project. So that's something to think about too, because that really is that is, in my humble opinion, the spot in the village that really represents the village.
It has a lot of architectural significance.
Yeah. The double arches are just that. They're the double arches. Everybody knows it if you live here. And even if you don't, a lot of people know that that's the spot.
Mhm.
And the state just spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on their component, the aqueduct. in the last
But no
couple of
benches.
years, so it'd be nice to parlay right into our. And I could tell you that once it's open for public access, eventually, the path that goes underneath the double
I'm excited
arches
for that.
is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
The,
It's
the,
really
the view that
spectacular.
you have, yeah. the
And it's
view-
part of a linear park. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Yeah. That's good. It's working.
And-
Yeah, we're excited for that project.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
What is the timeline looking like for that project for public access to it?
Oh, the
3 more easements. Still
Okay.
working.
3 more.
That's what we're waiting for. Is just the legal
Well,
easements.
Outside of the easements, I just met with a contractor this week. The redesign on the switchback to tie into Chris's deck is redesigned and priced and negotiated and finalized as a change order. That's forthcoming. We're still looking to do that within the contingency, even though that whole transition wasn't really part of it. But the project went fairly well, so we think we're going to be able to do it within the existing contingency funded in that project right now. And to complete the stairs up to Central Avenue as it's designed now for access, and to complete the switchback up to the parking area and the deck behind the recreation center, we're hoping before Labor Day weekend to be
Sweet.
completed.
cool.
So, Corporation Council, do you think that the easements will coincide with that Labor Day opening?
Not in my hands.
It's not.
Trying to get responses from individuals, and there's been some estates that have been filed, so I'm
Okay.
dealing with attorneys' offices and working as fast as it can be worked. So
Okay.
I'm
So
hoping-
we'll cross our fingers for Labor Day
Yeah,
then. Thanks.
Great.
Went off on
Paul,
a little bit
thank
of a
you.
related
Thank
tangent
you,
there,
Paul.
but thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
So those are the 3 projects that we would like to submit for
Good.
CFA. If the board-
Yes, please.
Yes,
Yes,
definitely.
yes.
I will say, understanding from my understanding that the CFA is focused on economic development, and that's really our hook for the Route 9. It makes sense because that's where the money is, so that's a really logical place to start. And we very much care about the economic development, and for all the reasons that were discussed in the previous work session on the Route 9 opportunity. The long-term planning definitely would include looking at traffic dieting measures to have continuity for the traffic. We have some 2 lanes, we have some 3 lanes, and it's really, from my conversation with, and Lieutenant Montague spoke to some of these items when he attended that meeting. As traffic approaches emerge, it creates, particularly like Nelson Park area is one area of concern for traffic safety for pedestrians, particularly. The lanes, people speed up to get in front of somebody before you get to the bottleneck, and then traffic slows down. But as much as anything, it's not just the traffic moving smoothly. It's a health and safety concern. So when any grants come up for us to explore how to do that, or if DOT is willing to engage in a conversation of continuity, like Sleepy Hollow, it took them to finally finish their continuity, but they've now finished their continuity, which is pretty much a lane in each direction and then a left-hand turning lane. I think that's really something we should be looking into long-term for Route 9, understanding that's not going to be the focus for your CFA
Right.
grant application right now, but when there is an opportunity to have a conversation with the DOT more broadly or to apply for additional grants, I think that I want that to be on the radar.
Right.
So.
Well, I think that sort of goes into the next,
All right.
I guess, topic. of Route
Then
9.
I'll stop talking and hear what else you have to say on
No,
this.
because there are some additional grants that we did receive information from the DOT that there's this transportation improvement program, which comes basically it's every 5 years more or less. There's new rounds for additional projects, and they call it the TIP. And the next funding cycle will be from 2017 to 2021. Of which in this summer of 2015 they'll be seeking comments from the public regarding funding for the next round.
Great.
So as through that, the money funnels through this particular program from the Federal Surface Transportation Program. So there is potentially funding available for studies. This is the type of program that would ultimately potentially pay for whatever outcomes also from our design work. So when the DOT talks about maybe, or even the last round when we were looking through going through some of the designs, that this TIP funding was going to be the type of the funding that was going to actually construct the changes to Route 9. So this is something that if we decide to move forward with, this is something that the village, definitely village manager and even, yourself as the mayor would need to advocate for this particular project to get onto the TIP. Now we can try to get it for a planning grant, because this will coincide with, we'll submit for the CFA and then we can also submit for the TIP. If we don't get it as part of this particular funding, at least it puts it on the radar that we're interested in actually undertaking this type of program. So ultimately, we will need to reach out to the DOT and we'll need to start conversations with them, because clearly they'll need to be on board with whatever it is that we're looking to do for this particular project, and then ultimately they'll need to sign off on whatever it is, the outcomes that we decide as a community. They'll need to sign off on is in support of that particular design. So we can also look to doing that in the summer as well.
Great.
Very nice.
Just a quick question.
Sure.
So this state TIP program,
Yes.
so besides the basic well, I won't call it basic because I don't know, the application process, it's one of those programs that kind of requires going that extra step from advocacy efforts from this board and the village manager, and really going out of our way to make sure that our application is heard and seen.
Yes.
And
Yes.
okay.
Yes. And that was definitely something that the state even identified. We're not just going to want to just send it in. We're going to want to make sure that, we advocate for our project.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So, not done yet. So that brings me to, I guess, the planning department projects, because I wanted to talk about, because we just talked about a decent amount of work
Yeah.
that will be.
I'm just going to cut Valerie off for just a second.
Sure.
Because I've been meeting with Valerie, and I think Loyalty's going to have input on this as well. But part of the problem is there's wonderful things going on. There's a lot of wonderful things, really important things. And I asked Valerie to come before the board to talk about all that she is doing and to really get from the board the sense of the priorities, because if we don't have priorities, nothing's a priority. So I went to the board to look at it and really we wish that time was infinite and we can do everything same time, move forward 110% on everything. But that unfortunately is not the case. So I had asked Valerie to come here to represent her department of 2.5 people. She does an incredible amount and turns out a lot of really terrific work. So I would ask that she really speak to the board tonight so the board can understand and get a sense of the amount of volume of projects that she's handling, and talk to the board and find out where they how they see these projects falling in order. Is that kind of stuff? Okay.
Okay, so why don't I'm just going to briefly talk about some of the projects that are underway. Now, these are all projects that are not related at all to any of the land use boards, so meaning there are no planning board projects, zoning board projects, HPC projects, or EAC projects. So that in itself takes a big bulk of our time in the planning department. But since we began the year, we've done the complete streets research dealing with not only the resolutions, the policy decisions, but then also looking at the implementation. We've also looked at Route 9 updates and did the grant research for potential projects for Route 9. We've also we've done some research into alternative energy and other zoning tweaks. This includes ground mount solar, carports, automated garages, rooftop turbines, and then also some other zoning tweaks that the building department has identified, and the planning board has also identified that we want to probably tweak. This isn't like wholesale changes to the zoning, but tweaks in definitions, tweaks in like maybe some standards, that type of thing, which is why it sort of works well with the alternative energy. We've also been working on municipal parking and train station parking local law updates. I've been working closely with the law department on that. we basically the local laws, and we've talked about this in the past, the local laws that are in place really do need to be upgraded and modernized, and then as well as also reflect what current conditions are, and then also how our downtown is changing. So we're anticipating having that back sometime in June, but work is still ongoing, and we've been working closely with also Paul Fraioli and then Lieutenant Montague on these changes and dealing with the parking. Museum in the Streets, we're still working on that. We are also dealing with licenses, trying to get those back. And we're also working on, Lori Lee's reviewing the contracts. We're about to package things to get for the signs to start getting ready to send those up. The final texts are almost done, and then we still have to do the proofing of all the signs and then the whole installation process. Park Promenade Grant implementation, work is about to get started on that, and as Paul mentioned, we are having monthly meetings with Harbor Square to go through everything that they need to implement, not only in this particular project, but also for their whole entire site, which is...
You're actually meeting them more often than monthly.
Yeah. Well, that's true. But
it's almost I think it's weekly that
yes,
Valerie and Paul.
But we actually have a monthly meeting where Paul, Andy, Al, myself, and the whole entire Harbor Square team, as well as Keller Sessions, sits down and goes, okay, where are you with this? Where are you with this? Where are you with that?
And then they meet additionally as needed in
Yes.
subcommittees.
Yes. So, so that is a tremendous work that's taking place for that. But then, but that park promenade, that is actually going to be, it's basically going to be $1 million park that's going to be created. So there's a lot of moving pieces with that, and there's still a lot of things that need to sort of be implemented and overseen. And then Mind Mixer, as you know, we're dealing with finalizing we're still working on the questions. We're going to do a presentation in front of this board in June. And then clearly we're also going to work on questions from the community. That's the final round of questions. And then clearly then we'll have to work through the RFP process and see how this board wants to unfold and create your RFP to go out at some point in the fall. And then water supply and water demand management plan. I mean, this is a project that's being spearheaded by Andy Teese, as you know, but I have been working with him where needed. And then also when the water demand management plan starts unfolding, I anticipate probably working with him on some of the planning aspects of the plan. So that's in a nutshell of what we are undertaking right now. So when we look at the list of projects that I have on my plate to do that this board has sort of prioritized over this year as well is we have I'll get back to the Ossining grant, doc grant in a second, but we have the Route 9 grant applications, which we just talked about tonight. We also have the other grant applications through the CFA process. We talked about Complete Streets implementation, and then we actually, if we decide to move forward with the alternative energy and other zoning tweaks, we actually have to go into the code now and actually start creating them, looking at what the best language would be, circulating that amongst the different boards, presenting to this board, and then also working with the different departments. And then we also talked about Green Buildings Code, which we reached out to try to set up a committee, although we have a small committee that there hasn't been a lot of big interest in amongst the public to join a committee that's really going to focus on just creating codes. But we do have some board members that are interested, and then we have like maybe 1 or 2 people from the public. A number of our people that were interested are actually...
And 2 of them moved away.
2 of them moved away.
I'm so upset. I'm so upset. They were like outstanding members too.
They were, so that was...
Not that outstanding anymore.
Yeah, they were when they were Ossining residents.
So we did have a larger group.
One of them moved away, one of them's putting her house on the offer.
But even so, if we decide to move forward with the Green Buildings Code, that's something different. That's not like your alternative energy. This is really dealing with buildings codes, and so that's another whole process in itself.
Well, I will say on the green building codes, aside from the fact that 2 really super awesome, fantastic potential members are leaving Ossining or have left Ossining, it would be my hope that the preliminary efforts on that would be mostly driven by a chairperson that would be a member of it, not you or a paid employee, perhaps one of the members of the appointed boards or a community member. With guidance from you, but minimal actual effort, because they should be gathering materials and reviewing materials.
I don't anticipate that happening.
You don't anticipate it being that minimal on your part?
No, I think it's going to be primarily staff-driven with community or the board input. You know what I'm saying? The Green Buildings Code Commission, or whatever you're going to call them, committees input, because you have the number of the people that are interested are already on other boards and already have full-time jobs. So for them to take on a task like this, and then that also prolongs probably the process. So if you actually want to get the process done within, a certain period of time, then you really do need staff to help drive the effort. Even though that there's because at some point there needs to be also internal meetings, dealing with the other various departments, working with the state to make sure it doesn't conflict with any state codes. Clearly there's been already groundwork laid by Yonkers and Hastings and some other communities, but you still need to actually, go through the codes. And I'm saying code, like our zoning code and our various other village codes, and figure out what conflicts, what doesn't conflict, and implement them. So it's actually very time consuming. And, I know Brad Tito, he worked on it mostly. It was really not, he drove it, not necessarily the committee. I know the woman from Hastings, when I spoke to her, she actually did a lot of it, but she took it on knowing that was going to be pretty much like the one thing that she was going to work on. Like, she was a willing member. The committee members that I talked to are willing to be participants, are not willing to take that project on themselves.
Does anybody want to comment on prioritization of these 6 items that have been recognized?
I do.
Go ahead.
So there's 2 pages, right? So then the first one, right, is basically
that's work that we're already doing.
Right, but that's not really pertaining to land use, which is what your office is supposed to focus on, right? I just want to make
This is everything. So my department deals with all land use boards,
right? Okay,
and we deal with the affordable housing program,
right?
I didn't list any of that work.
Okay.
This is all work that's
stuff
not
that's in the
related
planning
to
board
the
process. This is
right.
So this is all stuff that's really not. I don't want to say not your job, but that because of your expertise and
right. No, they're all planning related.
They're all
just
planning
not
It's all her job.
related to
Okay. I just want to make sure.
that I have
No,
in
it's
front
all
of me.
good.
It's all her job. It's just all in her office's hands. It's not working its way through the boards. It's not in front of APC or AP.
Okay.
Right. So I just wanted to point out to this board before you, so the Route 9 grants and the other grant applications, so since they're all due at the end of July, if we decide to move forward with those would probably have to be the top priority, because those would be primarily what we're going to focus on for the next, I have Jonathan come in my office 2 days a week. So 2 days a week doing, between him and I working on 3 or 4 different grants. That's going to take us pretty much
That's your summer project,
close to the end of July to.
And that's what we got to do.
But if we can start working, and that's why I wanted to have this conversation, because I wanted then to figure out what our next major project, once those grants are done, that we would focus on. Because I'm clearly, right now, I'm working primarily trying to finish up examining the streets, and I'm dealing with the park grant and the mine mixer stuff, and then the water supply stuff. Jonathan was dealing with the researching of the different grants, the alternative energy, and he's been working on the municipal parking and train station stuff, and then also did some green buildings work for me. And then he's also been picking up other projects. Like, for example, we had the state sent us something that we had to do self-assessments on 2 grants that we got from the state 20 years ago, dealing with the aqueduct and stuff, and we actually had to send in full reports and stuff like that. So, those are the types of work that I've been having. You'd be surprised what shows up on my desk, things that we need to submit for. But so we actually have a new sign that we have to post because of this grant from the 80s or something. So.
Do we have to pay for that sign?
We did.
Of course we did.
Exactly, we were supposed to keep the sign for 50 years or something.
I know that item number 8 on the first page of list of projects that are underway that are not land use board related.
Yes.
I don't know about you guys, but I feel pretty good about the complete streets research status that we're doing so far. I mean, now we have 3 prospective implementation phases that we're going to decide on what to do or how to go about it, right? And the one that seems kind of urgent is our water supply and water demand, and how that will, especially after hearing Andy.
Go to page 2.
Oh,
'Cause that's already
well.
what we're doing.
Oh, okay. Well, no. Well, either okay.
But I'm glad you think they're
No, well, no.
really important.
No. Either way, though. Either way, because you also have. I mean, a lot that's on the first page is on this
No,
page.
actually, the second page, because the first page deals with complete streets research. Now we're ready to do the implementation. So the first part, we did the research, we're done with that. So now we're ready to do the implementation of the complete streets, which is the 2 projects you highlighted tonight, dealing with the codes and then dealing with the walking audit. So that would be the next thing that we would focus on if that's the next thing you wanted to focus on. See, because the thing is, we're not going to be able to do green buildings code, alternative energy tweaks, complete streets, and your Ossining dock grant implementation all at once. We're gonna have to stagger them.
So let me ask you something real quick.
Valerie, do you know?
So for right now, I can tell you that we move forward with the grant application. We'll be busy till probably July. We can plan to start another project, or actually have, if you wanted to do the complete streets implementation, it's like, it's a nice community thing, it's a summer thing, we could probably try to have, that event take place in August, and then in the fall, we can start some of the other stuff, which deals with, your different zoning, the alternative energy and other zoning tweaks, or your green buildings code. If you'd like to work it that way.
That works.
So then among those, what would be our next priority? Let me ask you about the dock grant.
Yeah, so that's the other thing I need to talk to you about tonight.
Okay.
So we have been, the grant contract was signed. It was sent to the state. The state had some additional forms they wanted us to submit, and it really deals with this MWBE program, which is the Women and Minority Businesses Enterprises program. The state, and they've actually even increased the requirements more starting like April 1st. They want at least 30% of all contracts to be awarded to an MWBE. And when I say 30%, excuse me, 30% of the funds for all contracts. And you do actually have to actively seek an MWBE. The project itself, when we originally submitted for it, if you recall, we submitted this grant for design and construction. They came back and they said, we'll just pay you for the design and engineering. But that was just an estimated cost, because when we put forth that grant, typically when this is before like the CFAs really kicked into gear and they started really pushing this phasing, because they're really big into phasing, so they want you to come in for little parts at a time. I guess that's because they can spread the money out to more projects. In the past, you would just submit for design, construction, and that's how Pearl Bucky was funded. It was funded for the design, the engineering, and the construction, the whole thing. So that's what we submitted for the dock. And so usually, you make an estimate. We made an estimate on the engineering, but GDC said that they were going to partner with us with the engineering costs, and we would have the full cost of construction. So they just came back with, we submitted $43,000. They came back and said, we'll give you $43,000 for the engineering. And they were not going to fund the construction part. As a result, when we started going out to look for how much it's actually going to be to do the engineering, and this was supposed to be engineering, permitting, and the design, it didn't include additional studies, and because of that, and it didn't include the seeker analysis, and because of that, the costs are going to actually be higher than $43,000. It's probably going to be almost probably double that amount to do the design and the engineering work. We have been working with GDC on this, and GDC still is committed to paying for $22,000 of this project, which is their initial match, but they are hesitant at this point in time committing more than that. The state has recently contacted me and said, well, they can revise the scope so that we just do like some initial studies and then go back again for design money and then go back again for the construction costs. So, but because of the fact that we actually have to, we have to seek for MWBE, I really do need to have this full scope defined. We originally, you met Ed Weinstein's office, which was originally we were thinking about working with his office, and he is not an MWBE. He could potentially hire MWBE contractors, but the fact is that we still have to go out for RFP and try to seek an MWBE. And the waivers now are so difficult to get a waiver from an MWBE, where in the past it was a lot more, it was less strict on getting your waivers. Now they really want you to show that you've actually basically tried to get an MWBE. You're not able to get an MWBE to hire for this particular project, and you're also not able to find that 30% somewhere else through subcontracting. So there's no way $43,000 is going to pay for any subcontracting money at this point in time. And so we would have to change the scope of the project. So basically when I spoke to Chris Soy about this today, and he knew I was coming to present this tonight, basically what we need to figure out is how important is this dock project to the village? Because if this is a project of high priority and you want to see it through no matter what, we can go back to the state, revise the scope, and work on just focusing on maybe just doing the studies, and then submitting again for design work, and then submitting again for the construction. I want you to be aware, though, that when in my conversations with the state, Sleepy Hollow and Peekskill are also moving forward with their own dock designs as well. So they're in some sort of feasibility study or design phase for their docks too. So there are other communities that are moving forward with this same concept and idea. So we just need to figure out this project and whether we want to move forward with it and how we want to proceed.
Does anyone have a comment? It's kind of your wheelhouse, Bob. Do you want to speak?
Yeah, it looks like this is getting very, very complicated, more and more expensive, while at the same time the funding is getting less and less. Is that a fair analysis of what's happening?
Right. So it's always been like a complicated project.
Mm-hmm.
The issue is that we anticipated full funding, and then we went in last year. We anticipated getting funding for the construction, and then again that was in our conversations with the state, they said they want actual construction drawings. But in order to get the construction drawings, it seems like we actually have to do some of the bathymetry studies and some of the soil borings, and so which then adds to the cost of
right.
it. Now GDC did say that they would partner with us onto some aspects of the project, but there's other aspects that they're looking for the village to basically also fund as part of this.
We need to look at what the real money is, because it's a little vague now, and it's not your fault, it's because it keeps changing. But my concern is that we take this grant money, we get it started, and we don't have the funds to complete it. Don't forget, we have to cut $200,000 out of our operating budget next year.
Right.
And the year after, and the year after.
Right.
I don't want there to be, on my watch, a project that gets started without the chance of it actually getting completed ever. And I'm very concerned about that. Sometimes this is starting to sound like a free elephant. Okay? I told you about the fellow offered me a free elephant when I had the circus. It's not free. You got to feed it, you got to house it, you got to transport it, and next thing you know, you're in the poorhouse with the free elephant. So unless we can turn this around, I think this needs to be put aside. And it breaks my heart to do it because it's the thing that I've been wanting for the last 4 years. But it seems to me like we need to take a really hard look at whether this is actually feasible. And I think that's you and Tom and Paul looking at it and seeing whether or not this can actually get done, given the financial limitations that we're under.
Right. So I think you're right, and that's why I'm bringing this back to you, because there's a lot of projects this village wants to see happen, and so at some point, I think that's why I'm here to say, what are your priorities? What are we going to go for? What do we want to really focus on? Because there's a lot of things in the hopper, and they all require matches and they all require funds, and I don't have a water fund behind me.
Yeah.
Please, yes.
Yeah, so I guess, my question is, so what's the closest thing to getting done and what's going to cost the least amount of money, right? That would be sort of one of the ways I would potentially approach it. This whole dock thing is just turned into they keep moving the cheese, and just make it hard, Just can we make it any more difficult for us? It's just crazy. I mean, everybody says, "Oh, you got to have something shovel ready," and they make it so difficult for you just to get to there, right? Isn't that what we're talking about?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't even get to the point where we understand how much it's really going to cost, So, listen, I'd love to see the grant. I mean, I'm kind of shocked that Ginsburg's been, they got drawings of their dock and their plans, for Christ's sake, So it's kind of like, the fact that they're walking away, it's.
Well, I don't necessarily know
No,
they're
they're
walking
not walking
away, but
They just haven't upped their contribution.
Well, but I mean, they
Their
can
match.
see it's none of our doing. It's not like we didn't try.
no, I know that. I think it's, can this project happen? Yes. But it really just depends on, I know there's only so many resources.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I like I said, what are the things we can really get done, and what are the things we can get done within the amount of money that we have and resources we have available to do it.
And what do we have to do?
And what are the things that? Yeah. I mean,
Some things we have to do. Some things are optional.
Once.
Some of the things we have to do cost a lot of money. Some not so much. And then after that, whatever's left, we need to look at. Okay, these are the things that are left. Which ones can we afford to do?
Right. I mean, I did not, right now I'm not even suggesting taking that from the rec fund because I know Chris has a whole list of stuff that he needs, and I think he's going to be bringing that back to the board.
There you go.
At some point, and because he's doing park assessments and stuff like that. So Chris and I had a long conversation today about, the rec. So I did tell him that I was coming tonight because, he does know that a certain pot of money was set aside for the
$300,000.
Right.
Mhm.
That was when Henry was here and stuff like that. I know he's planning to come back because he has a list of.
Chris is planning to come back.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry. Chris is
Wanted to be
planning
clear on that.
Chris is planning to come in and talk about the projects that he's looking at, and we actually had a conversation about the rec funds too, because there isn't a lot in the pipeline of new rec funds that are going to be coming in. So I did speak to him about that and about where the rec funds are, and and so some of those things he's going to be weighing in, and that's another topic for another time. But I just I'm not bringing that to say that we should spend the recreation funds for the study because of the fact that I know Chris has some projects that he would like to present to this board, and starting to look at how he wants to spend that money.
So can I just see if I can bottom line it here? We have Martin at a 50% match, and we estimated this phase, which may need to be redefined, at $43,000. When we submitted, we thought that would cover engineering, permitting, design, and seeker, which, of course, it's not going to. So if we were to redefine the scope at this point to do just the feasibility studies,
Right.
could we accomplish that with the $43,000 that we've earmarked already?
Right. That's what. Right. Exactly. The Ed Weinstein off.
I don't understand.
Was there a legal issue that you wanted to speak to on that?
Yeah, and my illegal issue with the question is, would Martin be willing to redefine his public-private partnership to just narrow the scope to that small issue?
Right, and that's
Because I know you spoke with him
right,
today.
And I can go back to him on that.
Yeah.
The difficulty is, they're moving at a different time frame to some extent than the state wants us to move on this grant, and no matter what, we have this MWBE issue to deal with as well. So I got to get Martin to understand that it might not necessarily be the company that he's been working with closely and that we've worked with on the shoreline stabilization because of the fact that there is this MWBE requirement.
Okay, thanks.
I'm actually very surprised that this is where we're at, and I'm incredibly disappointed. A year ago, this board passed a resolution to use that $300,000 for a totally different project, which was shovel ready and was actually underway, which would have been a continuation of the Greenway in the Sing Sing Kilbrook.
Right.
We passed a resolution to use the money for that purpose. Somebody hadn't been looking carefully at where all the in lieu of parkland funds was being used at the time, and you didn't know that we were going to be using the funds for that because you had been planning to use it for this dock fund.
Right.
We sat here in this room and said, undo that resolution. We're not spending it on that because we've got this dock project. It's so important and it's going to happen.
Right.
And then we didn't get the grant last fall.
Right.
And then we were told the reason we didn't get the grant is because the engineering wasn't done.
Right.
For the construction, we didn't get the construction portion because the engineering wasn't done.
Right.
So we're going to get the design done, and then the design will be almost all the way ready when it's time to apply to get the construction grant.
Right.
And now we don't even have a designer we're allowed to use.
Right. Because on April 1st, they changed all the rules for the MWBE for all contracts that are not officially executed.
Shit.
State
So-
debt, right? State.
Why hadn't we executed it? We had the...
Because we did execute it, then we came back and they said, we want you to identify the MWB. This is from, they redid MWBs, I think it was in 2014. They came back and said, okay, well, we want you to identify the MWBs that you're going to go out for. And so I was working with the state on that because I said, well, but we already had identified somebody, and they said, well, you can do 30% of that, or it was 20% of the total cost can be for that. So I've been working with, since February, I've been working with Martin to say, are you willing to take on the additional cost? Martin has been hesitant to take on the additional cost because no matter what we need to do, we're going to need to do bathymetry studies, we're going to need to do soil borings in order to do the design. And so we went back to the state, and I said we were still working on getting commitment from Martin. And then in April 1st, they changed the MWBE rules, so now they're up to 30%. And then they provided me the waiver, and the waiver is extraordinarily high in order to get a waiver from the MWBE.
It doesn't sound like you're very optimistic that we're going to have the grant money sufficient to be able to go for the dock extension anytime in the near future, especially considering that Peekskill and Sleepy Hollow are on the way to getting their grants, and they are able to comply with using
Well, they're
MWBE.
they already have feasibility studies underway. I don't know what.
I assume that when our neighboring waterfront communities get a dock extension, does that make us less of a priority for the state and therefore less
Not
likely to get
necessarily,
funding?
but I wanted you to know because we're looking to do economic, revitalization, and we want to become, a place on the map. If two other communities surrounding us are going in that same direction, to some extent, it's,
Now we're not leading the way. We're not even keeping up with the Joneses.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. So I'm here tonight to say if we want to move forward with this particular project, we can move forward with this project, but I think we need to, at this point in time, to some extent, go it alone with the contribution from GDC as opposed to waiting on GDC to move forward with the project with us.
It seems like GDC has a lot that you're trying to negotiate with them about to move forward each month, to keep
Right.
moving forward.
And
So
that's
adding to that list of things you try to accomplish each month may not be the best plan of
correct,
action.
And that's why I'm here talking about this, because it has been very slow to get this moving, and the state wants to see this moving, and we need to sort of make a decision whether this is, and that's why also I'm here talking about prioritization, because is this a high priority project? And if it is, we can get it done. We just need to work out some of the funds with the design work and.
Yeah, so we recognize this is an important project and that it's one of the board's priorities. It's costing us, our portion is going to be significantly more. So we wanted to talk to the board and just make them aware of these additional caveats, and it's a much more complicated project now. Is that
Right,
kind of
right.
help?
I mean, if we decide to move forward, we could still probably work with Ed Weinstein, and we just, so that he can sub out like some of the actual the studies that need to be
WMD.
done to MWBs. I mean, there's always those possibilities. It's just the fact that
I'm of a mind that we are really focusing right now on Main Street and downtown economic development. We haven't talked at all about Market Square. Some thoughts on that. I'd like to get back to that when you're talking about Mind Mixer. There's so much already happening on the waterfront right now with GDC. I'm not inclined to say let's add to that project. I just am very disappointed that we're at the point that we're at, and I know that everyone else is experiencing frustration for this. Does anybody else want to differ from that
I
assessment?
just had a quick thing that this I just see it as a great project, but I see it as a want, not a need, and it was never one of my major priorities. Yes, I still see it as a want versus an actual need when it comes to the entire village as a whole. Personally.
I'm just really disappointed in what's going on and what the state is actually doing to us in this particular case, and seeing all the two municipalities that are actually going forward with this. And I'm not sure what was the process time between the three of us. I guess the three different municipalities. What stage were there at some point?
theirs were older.
They were
because I
older.
looked because
Okay.
I looked at some of the past to see where
So they've
those
been-
were a number of
Now,
years
is there
ago
anything
they
that,
got funded.
let's say, and please understand that you're asking for a priority of the process. Let's say, and I know this is not going to happen, but let's say we say, go ahead, we want this dock to be
Right.
done. What is it to say that the state is not going to change their mind and minimize even more to what we can do and what they require for us to do to get to the stage that they want us to be in regards to the design drawings or the studies that we need to just to provide them for them to tell us, yeah, okay, we're going to give you the money.
Right, and that's the difficulty. And when Richard and I had the phone call with them, it was frustrating because now they say they want like construction,
Yeah.
drawings in order to consider it for funding for the actual construction of the dock.
But now,
But I can't guarantee that next year the
But
LWRP.
yeah.
It's almost
They're
as if
gonna
they're
have
moving.
higher
It's almost as if they moved the.
Right.
yeah, but isn't it something in
Yeah.
writing that we can hold them accountable to what they actually said? And because we did submit the application, sure.
Right.
We did all the paperwork that was required by the date that it was required
Right.
by them.
Right.
So isn't that more like a contract or something like a submission that we can hold them against?
No,
Be like, can we grandfather in the requirements that we have in this point?
But it was approved last year.
Yeah.
The $43,000 in design costs was approved last year with help from, if I'm remembering correctly, from Assemblywoman Galis' office helped with that, or am I thinking of another grant?
$43,000 was from a 2013 grant.
Uh-huh.
That we put in for design and construction, and we
Right.
really didn't spend a lot of time on the design because at that point
Right,
in time,
okay.
the assumption was they were going to just fund the whole thing, and at that point, they just took a snippet from our budgets and said, "Okay, well, here we're just going to give you 43."
But the $43,000 was given, we were granted it in
Yeah.
2013.
Right, but we didn't get the contract from them till 2014, fall of 2014. We just got the contract from them in fall of 2014, which was frustrating because I had to submit the grant for 2014 for the CFAs without a contract in hand to do the design work.
Okay.
And so then they turned around and said, well, actually we want you to do design work first before we award you for the construction. So it's been a little bit, it's been frustrating, to say the least, dealing with these, especially with this particular program. It's different because it's running through, the LWRP runs through the Department of State, which runs directly through, I think, the governor's office, where the Empire State Development grants run through another agency. So it depends on how fast these agencies move. So, I mean...
Okay.
All right,
Trustee Savage,
so
with another-
We're obviously not paying the right people in Albany to make things happen. I'm sorry, my level of frustration tonight is
You know what,
is
I'll-
just off the hook.
No. I'm
Anyway.
saying let's
Oh,
go back to Trustee
okay.
Quesada. Stay away
All
from...
right, so at this point, and I think for what I can see is like we're going to hold this and put into to the table on the side for now. What happens if we don't do anything at this point? Do we lose any momentum that if we ever had any momentum on this application?
Ultimately, they're going to potentially decide just to take away maybe the grant from us.
Okay. And just give it to somebody else?
Now, I can go back to GDC and say at this point the board is planning to put a whole bunch of priorities and see if for some reason they come back and say, well, now we're willing to help out more. But,
Well, we're talking about $43,000 to $80,000 that
I mean, I
that may
just
cost.
an estimate.
Yeah.
I don't,
No,
you know.
I understand. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I don't know. I cannot speak for the whole board, but I'll put that to the side. I think we have a couple of the grants that hopefully we can execute them when we get them, and if we get them at this point. One of the quick questions before I forget, we are going to go for the grant for the double arch bridge in there,
Yeah.
and you mentioned something that this program is about. It's a matching grant. We
Yes.
can get $500,000.
Right.
Is it the same grant that we applied for 200 Main Street or similar with the same agency?
It is.
It is?
It is the similar agency, but 200 Main Street, we didn't have, I mean, we actually have, as part of this grant to submit, not only do we have a full budget, but we also have the
We
preliminary
have the report.
engineering report.
Okay.
which
So is it it's going to be different? I
Yes.
mean, we
Yeah.
have a better
Yes.
percentage of what we actually get in this grant than we
Well,
did with
and
200.
also we actually have the cost estimated better, and then also there is a real need, and because
Yeah.
the state just funded for the upper bridge,
Yeah.
I think, you know,
Okay.
They recognize it as a priority too. Yeah.
So that seems to be the priority then.
I mean, I'm hoping, you know, it's guaranteed.
All right.
Okay.
I think I have
The only
just
other
to say.
thing, the only other comment I would make would be that, you know, I mean, you mentioned other grant applications through the CFA process.
Yeah, that's that would be
Those are the ones that
the
we
Broadway
before.
Bridge and the North Malcolm Street.
Right.
Okay. And I think we all agreed that was something that we all wanted to move forward on. So I would say that's a priority. Anytime we can get matching funds or funds from other sources that will expand and allow us to spend less money on things that we think are important. I mean, I think we have to work as hard as we can to get the grant applications in. I mean, that's found money in many respects.
Governing is making choices, and you can't do everything. There's limited funds, limited time, staff is stretched to the limit, and sometimes you have to make the hard choices. That dock project is close to my heart, but sometimes you have to act against your own self-interest and do what needs to be done to move the village forward in the most effective, most cost-effective way, and I think we just did that.
So you had 6 items that you were asking for us to prioritize. We have focused on one of them a lot, which is the grant application, and it seems we have some consensus that that is not going to the top of the list at this point, barring any change, like Ginsburg wants to pay for it all.
Yeah.
That would be nice. That would be nice.
Buy us a lottery ticket.
Regarding I'll jump to number 5 because it's something that Valerie and I have discussed in another context with it's come up, the tweaking of the codes for alternative energy and other zoning tweaks. I know one of them that's come up is like carports, solar carports. But right now, I think in our conference call last week, it was pretty clear that there's some talk of it, and gee, wouldn't that be nice at some point, but nobody is putting in for a permit to do it. So unless and until that happens, that's not going to rise to the top of our list.
Right.
And if it does, there would be a time period where we would have work to do on our end. There would be a few things that would have to be happening simultaneously for that code to be in effect
Right.
before somebody could participate. And the installer that we're working with Solaris right now anyway for the commercial was very willing to help in the way that's appropriate for them to assist in the process.
Yes. So, I mean, that's something if we want to actually ultimately try to be proactive, you know, we can work this in. I would say we probably wouldn't be able to get to it till the fall, but we might be able to
Okay.
try to work on these items so that maybe by the end of the year or the beginning of next year we could have those in place.
Great.
But I think more of, I mean, I definitely think the solar, also the ground mount solar, I think is another important one because we do see that here at times. And right now, sometimes we've been counting them as accessory uses, but it probably would make most sense to actually really define that.
Okay.
And I do think the rooftop turbines are going to become more popular. And the same thing with automated garages. They're starting to become more popular. And right now, our code really focuses on standard garage parking. So
Right.
we want to try to work into that as well.
Okay. So then maybe this fall we'll revisit if that has become a hotter priority than it is right now. Green building codes, as much as I wish that we were moving it forward, I haven't seen who else has applied that hasn't moved away. But I would like to take a look at whatever resumes are there and look at just what the status is on that, although I understand that it doesn't make sense to make that a priority right now, similar to echo Bob's sentiments about the dock. For him, for me, green building codes is a real priority, but I can put it on the back burner as we get through these, time-sensitive application process. The Route 9 grant applications, your assistant planner, Jonathan Kirschenbaum, he provided us with a list of the research that he had done, and you reflected some of that in your report tonight of the various funding sources, and some of them might be more appropriate to be able to apply more broadly, as we were speaking before, to the full stretch of the village, looking at it from a health and safety, traffic flow perspective, not just focusing on the economic revitalization aspect, which is going to be the focus of the CFA application. I mean, in an ideal world, we would be able to do as much as possible. I mean, we realize we're going to have to prioritize, but if there are other opportunities, and it sounds like there are, like getting on that tip list, or then I would put that as a high priority because it makes sense for what we've already prioritized as a grant application for this summer. And the Complete Streets implementation projects.
Phases 1 and 2.
Phases 1 and 2 you have underway, and
well, phase 1 is pretty much done.
Right.
And then phase 2 we can start working on
doing the walking audit.
Right.
Let's
and
do that.
Organizing that and figuring out.
Right.
Reach out to Veronica Vanderpool on that.
Great,
There you
and
go.
that's everything on the prioritization list. I would like to just ask one question. You mentioned you don't anticipate a lot of rec fees coming in. What's up with Hudson Step?
Hudson Step is actually that's the only project that we anticipate having rec fees come in this year on.
Yeah, what's a big one though? It's like 189 units, right?
Well, it's 189 units, but they're also providing over $1.2 million of recreation already on site. So as part of, they did offer some money to the village, but I can't remember off the top of my head, but somewhere in maybe 60,000 or something.
It's not much.
Because they already paid the original property owners paid, I think it was like 90,000. I can't remember exactly, and that was part of their land transaction that they didn't take that money back. So that was already part of the rec fees.
We already got that money.
And aren't they putting a park in?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah,
it's
they're
just for
putting
their residents, but yeah, they are.
Well, that's
separate park
Well,
down
actually,
on my block.
No. The recreation fees are specifically for projects that are not providing recreation on site for their own residents.
So what is it? I'm completely blanking on what it is that they're paying for.
So they're actually, as being generous to the village and also not double dipping on some of their incentives. They are providing the village some money for their recreation, but they are providing recreation on site, a pool, a gym, community center. Also, I think it's up to an acre park, park whole for their residents. And then they also have green buildings and other different recreation for areas that they can relax, passive recreation, that type of thing.
Aren't they doing some infrastructure too with
Well,
water and
this is
sewer?
for in lieu of, so they didn't have to pay they don't have to pay the full rec fees. But yes, they're doing water main replacement. They're also doing green buildings. They're also doing historic preservation, and they're doing affordable housing as part of.
Are they doing Breakneck Path?
Yes, they're going to do all that, fix that up.
Did they change what they're doing? Because
sidewalks
on Hunter Street,
yes,
they told us that they were only using the Hunter Street for the emergency access.
That's correct.
And that the rest of that land would be public park.
It's the rest of the land is actually they're going to have some community gardens.
Yeah, that would be public park.
But right now they're having the community gardens is for the residents because they actually wanted, if they were going to have it as public, they were interested in the village maintaining it. And
Oh, I didn't
The
know.
whole thing seems non-public.
That's not community garden. That's yard.
That's Miss Smith's
community
garden.
gardens
That's
for
their yard.
residents right now.
That's not a community
it could
garden.
potentially change, but at that point, I think the planning board was hesitant to say, the village is, not going to necessarily have to maintain this. And so that's sort of where it was left off.
Okay.
So, but the recreation fees, the law is that if they have to provide recreation on site for their residents, if they don't provide recreation on site for their residents, the village can pay a fee in lieu.
Okay.
There you go.
Thank you for clarifying that. Regarding Museum in the Streets, what did you say about licensing?
So we're still, there's actually 9 different licenses that we need in order to put the signs up on people's private property. So we're still waiting on I think 3 or 4 of them to back to us. We call about every 3 weeks or so.
Well, if you want, you could put one by my house, but the sign would have to say nothing important ever happened here historically.
So we're still waiting on a few of those.
Okay. That's been a long project.
Yes, years.
Are we concerned that if we reached out to these people years ago and they're not yet complying, that we're creating signs that will never be able to be installed? Or
no, we only started the license agreement when we got closer to the end. So, but we haven't ordered any signs yet. And then at some point, if we still can't get response from some of those property owners, then we might have to look at seeing if there's a right of way that we can just put this on.
okay, because actually the labor was in creating the signs. That was a significant dedication of resources, more so than just the physical sign itself. So
What the sign would say, across the street and 2 blocks down, there's a historic.
hopefully a little more closer proximity than that. But
Right, so we need to finalize. So we're still working. Like I said, we're hopeful that we'll be able to get those easement agreements. But
then let me ask you about Mind Mixer, because the last conference call we had, you had said that you were finishing up your rounds of planning-focused questions, and you were going to invite some community organizations to generate questions, including like the Chamber of Commerce and Market Square Alliance. Could we set up another conference call with Jonathan Taylor? Because I participated in one when they're selling us on it. But now that we actually have it, and you made me an administrator, and I still haven't figured out exactly what that enables me to do. Could we set up a conference call with Jonathan Taylor and representative from the Chamber and representative from Market Square Alliance, and obviously you, Christina, and myself, to talk about how to get more traction on it, to be able to use it more as a social media platform. Like I feel like I don't understand the full capabilities of it, because I use so many different social media platforms, and this one is really question and answer. And I'm just wondering if I want to make more use of it. And in conjunction with that, I would like to, and I've spoken to the board about this, and some community volunteers, to do some community meetings to create a. There's a woman from the community who offered to volunteer her services to help create like a vision board and include in it visual items of things that we've been talking about as potential, like pictures of programmed open space, pictures of potential developments, some of the schematics, like some simple versions of some of the schematics that were created for the village a year and a half ago, and get people's feedback in interpersonal way, in small group way. And the board has agreed to try and help to do some of these in-person small group meetings, church basements, Rotary luncheons, any group that will have us, and to structure some questions that would tie into the questions we're asking in the Mind Mixer, and really be an opportunity to get people engaged in this conversation that are not social media savvy and or may not just be paying attention to what's going on in the village, or recognize that we really want to hear from them and that they have a role to play in this. So when we create the agenda for the June 10th meeting, I want to just have that visible and let people know about it, and start getting some more dates on the calendar for how we can do that. And then incorporate the findings from that and the findings from Mind Mixer in the September 23rd community meeting at the library. And that will help us know when we go out to a developer, because if a developer walked into Ossining right now, the greatest developer in the world, and said, I have plenty of money to invest in Market Square, I want to do great things, what do you want? We don't have an answer right now of what the community wants. And so that's what we're doing with Mind Mixer, and this is, I think, another in-person way to do it, and looking to do it in a way that taps into volunteer people in the community and on this board to do some of the actual legwork on that. So
June 10th. So I'm not presenting the results, and I'm going to present.
Why don't you present the update of Mind Mixer to this point on the June 10th? I think that would be really valuable. But I want the conversation to continue through the summer, as in conjunction with doing the in-person outreach, to do to use that as an opportunity to, while people are there, tell us your opinion, put a sticky note on the things you like, that kind of feedback, or, the woman who's helping me structure this was one of the things that she used to do when she lived in Brooklyn. And she's one of those people that moved here from Brooklyn, and she was an executive director at a nonprofit there that did this kind of a project in Fulton Street. And so she said, you should take the show on the road. And I said, you should help me do that. So she said yes. The idea would be, while people are there, say, okay, do you have a Mind Mixer account? Have you signed up? This is how you do it. Weigh in, and then help generate some more people there as well.
So that sounds fine. The last set of questions right now are dealing with uses, and they're set to close on, I think I have June 8th they're going to close.
Okay, I know when's that just closed.
I think it's June 8th or June 12th. I can't remember. It's like right around there. Then I was going to post the community questions, so we can set up a meeting with Mind Mixer prior to that. Just to let you know, Mind Mixer is actually changing their platform. It's going to be, they're changing it from Mind Mixer to what they're calling like My Sidewalk or something like that. So I told them something like that. But basically we haven't switched anything over yet because of the fact that we're waiting for these questions to finish. Once they are done and you're ready to unroll a new set of, if it's a different topic or you want to continue
the whole thing's
doing
going
it.
to change.
But do we have to change it? I'm sorry, but do we have to change it to whatever the other name is?
What it is actually, it's kind of a pretty seamless transition. Like the hyperlink is just going to connect to a new platform. It's just a new platform that they're going to. So it's at a point where you just do, everybody else will be able to, they're going to send, like anybody that's already connected to it will just automatically get information on
of course.
Move over. So, but the thing is, in order to prevent any confusion or anything, we were going to do that afterwards. So what I can do is, if we do have a meeting with whoever you're interested in, maybe we can show them the My Sidewalk one, and then we can decide on when the best transition is.
Okay. Thanks. That sounds good.
But I did speak to them about trying to drum up more participants, and basically it seems like we're doing all the different, they said basically, and most of their statistics are that about somewhere between 5 to 10% of the population will actually look at the site, and then typically 2 to 5% will only participate. So we're getting up there. Maybe not necessarily. We're about like 1%, 1.2% participating of our total population. So, I think some of it also is we have a very mixed population, and we have, besides age and ethnicity and languages and,
Right.
and who participates in social media and who does not. So,
Right.
but I do think we do have, we have over 200 people signed up now for it. So, I mean, in that sense, and we've had 1,600 unique visitors to the site. So we are getting some traction over the last couple months and stuff like that. But,
Okay.
and I'm also curious, too, truthfully, if we change the topic, if it's something about, I don't know, about, like, park and
Parks,
recreation
yeah.
programs, whether you would definitely get, much more interest in the response. So,
Okay. All right.
which we'll find out at some point.
Okay. Trustee Casada, did you have a question that you?
No. It was
Okay.
just a lot of people like the name. They get so familiar with the name.
I know, we work so
and
hard to help
then-
people know what it is.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
and like 2
we,
months
we
later,
didn't
changes.
advertise
Yeah.
the Mike's Mix and Mike's Mixer. Now we have to advertise my sidewalk.
Well, that's why I figured, we can decide whenever we want to do the transition.
Yeah.
And so my thought was, once we're done a particular project, and let's say, I don't know, like, you're going to have the recreation department or somebody else, start posting something,
Right.
then that would be the best time to do that transition.
Yeah. Why don't we ask Jonathan some more questions? Because if the new platform has more capabilities, then we don't want to wait. So let's. If
Right,
it's just
I mean,
a name
but-
change, then I don't ever care about changing
I mean,
it.
it makes it it's a little bit more user. I mean, I've seen it. It's a little bit more user friendly, and there is more data behind the scenes. But
Okay.
and they have some. But that's but that's not really for the public. So the public's, on the public end, it'll be a little bit more user friendly.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks,
So,
Valerie.
thank you,
Thanks,
Valerie, and
Valerie.
thank you to the board. This is a long conversation, but we really needed to take some time to focus on these to just to do what the board really wants us to do and do it best and efficient. So,
Do you feel like you have clarity
Yeah.
from us? Okay.
Good.
Great. Thank
yeah.
I'll go home and see your children.
They're sleeping.
So I have to figure out.
All right. So now the Dorothy, did you want to?
Yeah, Valerie and I just wanted to do a quick update, and you want to talk about Snowden Woods, right? Yeah. So a couple of months ago, a potential developer had appeared on the horizon, and so they're not really ready, and they're not past their concept plan, but they did have some surveyors out at the property. It's the property that's behind the firehouse on the north side. And there was a site plan years ago there, and so the developer came forward and started to have some internal conversations before Richard left. And traditionally, the developer comes and a small team gets together so we can congeal it into an actual project. So when they come here, it's not all over the place. But one of the aspects was that they were hoping to assist the village with replacing the firehouse.
Good.
So I know that that conversation has been word on the street because there's been a surveyor out there, I guess, in the last 10 days or so.
Yes.
So we knew that there was some perception in the public that this was coming. It isn't nearly ready to come. I've asked for a legal memorandum from their legal team because they're talking about options to provide to the village in terms of producing, even a turnkey project and handing it over to you as an intact firehouse. So it sounds pie in the sky. So I said I wasn't in a position to advise you as to the legality of that, and I needed them to advise me as to the legality of that. So we're still awaiting a memorandum on that. He did send us some possible RFPs in some other communities with similar kinds of projects, but it's still up in the air. It's still concept.
Right, and I think that's why, we wanted to, because people have called my office numerous times in the last week wanting to know what's going on or where things are. And it's not only just Beach Road residents, it's the fire department. So we wanted to just kind of bring you up to speed, and we've been telling them, everybody that pretty much the same, or I've been telling everybody pretty much the same thing, which is that, that there's been some concept plans, but there hasn't been anything really officially put on the table for this board to digest, especially dealing with the firehouse. And we said, why come with a concept plan if they haven't come to the table yet saying, we are definitely proposing X, Y, and Z for the village. So until that time actually happens, that's why we haven't brought them before you.
My only thought on that is if they have, concept plans that could go in this direction or in that direction before they spend the effort to come up with specific proposals, would it be of value for us to understand the direction they're going in so that maybe we can guide their efforts when
Right,
they actually create the proposals?
Well, I think here's the thing. The one concept plan, we told them has to show zoning compliant. The other concept plan was they wanted way out of zoning compliant. Right. And so we said, but neither one had anything really involving the firehouse, besides the fact that a rebuilding of the firehouse could take place, and there was nothing on the table as to who's going to be responsible for that, how that's going to happen, when that's going to happen, that whole thing. So, at this point, and even some of the zoning compliant plan does not contain what types of, because it's density bonuses that they're assuming, because that's in this conservation development district, and which is the same district that Avalon is in, and it doesn't really contemplate all those amenities yet. So it's like not even remotely. I mean, I wouldn't even consider it a plan to really have. I wouldn't even have them come before our planning board for an informal at this point, because usually even when you get to the informals, it's, well, this is our concept, this is what we're interested in doing, and this is what we're going to offer the village. Until that actually gets sort of decided from the actual developer, it's very premature.
Have you met with them, John?
I was on a conference call with them. I don't know if it was last year or last spring. Like it was a year ago or something?
Richard, it was a year ago.
Yeah, it was about a year ago. We had a conference call, and we talked about some conceptual things. I mean, we know we need more space on the north side for the firehouse. Mm-hmm. Obviously, that's a nice carrot for them, and that would provide certainly an amenity if we had to rebuild that structure ourselves. Having an extra bay on the north side and putting our ladder truck there would lower everybody's fire insurance because of our ISO rating. So I remember nothing ever went beyond the call from last year. This is frankly the first time I've heard it. I mean, I talk to the chiefs all the time. They sometimes ask me what's going on, so
right,
I can't really add anything to the conversation.
And that's the thing, because the chiefs, I've been in pretty close contact with the chiefs, and and they know that originally they gave us that very non-compliant zoning plan, and before Richard left, we met with them and we said, well, make a compliant one, and then also we need something to say what you're going to do with the firehouse, because most likely the firehouse is going to have to be part and parcel with any redevelopment that takes place, and that's a big piece of any redevelopment project that needs to be considered.
Yeah, we're talking like an 8-figure development for the firehouse, correct? Yeah.
Well, we don't know. I mean,
okay,
but
there was an estimate for that.
It's a major project.
That was like $10 million or something.
Yeah, but I mean that was right. That was a while ago, and but yes, but
yeah, that was a while ago.
That's why, right. That's why
prices didn't go down.
That's why we've been insistent to have something for this board before just bringing back a concept plan, because of the fact that this is it's a major part of this development, and it needs to be taken as serious. And the developer should take it as seriously as the development that they're planning to propose.
Okay. Do they have a concept of what the expense is?
No,
that's
the problem.
Well, is that something that they've met with the chiefs, so they've seen this same number that I've seen, haven't they?
But they haven't even said that they were planning to design anything for us. They haven't even said they're planning to engineer. They haven't. The only thing they've be willing to do is say, well, we'll draw you a little box and say that's where your firehouse will go.
And let me just clarify for anybody who's watching who hasn't been following this. The reason why they're looking for to develop land that currently does not have access to a street. And so they're looking for an easement that would go from their property, which is behind the Northside Firehouse, to Snowden Avenue.
Well, it does have access. It's just not as desirable an access as it would be if it came up to Snowden.
Because they have access to Beach Road.
Correct.
And the people on Beach Road are not so keen on that traffic.
I don't think it's
And I think it's
best
you know,
practices
right.
planning.
And truthfully, that's a very narrow road.
Yeah.
It's, you know.
And they're looking for a significant number of people that might be living in this development. What is it as of right? What would be the development number of
I
units?
think it's around 90-something units. That's
How many?
including all density.
They went up with 90-something.
I know.
units.
Yeah. All right. So. Yeah.
And that's with density
Yes,
bonuses.
but we have with all density bonuses about like 100 units, between 100 and 108 units, depending on the actual final calculations on the acreage.
Which is why the surveyor was out.
Right.
Yeah, and they have challenges just from a topography perspective too. I mean, there's only so much really buildable land there. I mean, you know, they would have to do other.
Right, and there's also the aqueduct. You know, there's a whole state agency that would have to be worked. You know, and so this is something else that they would have to cut. You know, they would have to be the ones dealing with it. I mean, just like Avalon dealt with the aqueduct, and there was a lot of work that they had to do with the state in order to, you know, be able to cross the aqueduct and stuff like that. So we just wanted you to be aware that in case, you know, you do hear from the public that, you know, or if they called my office and I said, yes, this is where things are, we wanted to get you up to date as well, because they were out doing surveying and we got lots of phone calls, panicking phone calls.
You know, I hear you. It's, you know, from our perspective, like we talk to the chiefs and community members and members of the fire department, and the mindset is that there's going to be a new firehouse in the not too distant future, and this is a viable potential reality. And the way you're speaking, it is not nearly that far down that path. And would it be appropriate at any time that if you are having an in-person meeting with them, even if they're giving you information that is not, you know, really concrete yet, or you haven't vetted that much yet, if John or I could participate and just meet them,
Absolutely. Well,
just
that's the thing.
see
We had,
like who
the
are
last-
these
the last
mystery
meeting we
people?
Had, the last meeting we had the chiefs there, and that was in February. And then since then, we've been trying to get together a meeting with them, and they have not been able to schedule meetings.
Okay.
Like it's really been that, you know, we have the chiefs are aware, the fire chiefs are aware of the situation, and they are aware of the, you know, it feels like it's always a start and then a stop, a start, stop. You know, we thought we were actually going to be moving at a pretty quick pace back in, like, I think it was like February, was it?
Yeah.
Because of the fact that they hired a lawyer, they hired some consultants, they were ready to move forward, and then
There's this new generation of the family that was making it happen, and that's not so much. Okay, thank you.
It's not a simple project.
well, and just to let you know, the developers, the two people that are now sort of overseeing this from the family, one lives in Colorado and one lives in Wyoming. Although they do visit Briarcliff often.
Fantastic.
So
We can make it to Briarcliff if that's convenient. So, but probably not Wyoming or.
We're so close.
So we will
trying
keep
to get
this
a
board
to Colorado.
We will continue to keep the board informed, and we are trying to. I think Lori Lee reached out to their attorney, also suggesting setting up a meeting, especially when the new village manager comes in.
That'd be great.
So
Thank you.
we're hoping to get this moving.
Thank you.
Okay.
It's on us now.
So, moving right along, the next item on the agenda, we actually added it, was we have Tom Warren join us tonight to talk about New York State tax cap
Okay.
filing.
Looking at my electronic. Okay, here we go.
Sorry.
No,
Change
that's
it
good.
up.
That's good. We are very happy to see Tom here.
Yes.
Thank you,
I
Tom.
promise it won't be nearly as long.
Yeah, that's a hard to beat.
But thank you for adding me to the agenda. I wanted to give the board and the public an update on the tax freeze initiative implemented by New York State since the next deadline and the next phase starts June 1st, where we have to file the government efficiency plan with New York State, which was the next step following the tax cap, or the tax levy cap, which was in existence for 2012, 13, 14, 15, and also will be in effect for 2016. But with the tax freeze, the requirements is that a local government must stay within the tax cap for 2015 and not adopt a local law to even allow protection if you accidentally override the
tax law by a mistake in the budget. And also, and we did fit that situation for 2015, and you also need to fulfill that requirement for 2016, and then also for the years 2017, 18, and 19, that's where the government efficiency plan falls in, where you have to file with the state a plan of savings equal to 1% of the 2014 tax levy, which turned out to be just over $208,000. And by complying with the requirements of the tax freeze, that means that the homeowners will receive a tax freeze credit. So that's why it's important to meet these goals. So back in February, I made a presentation to both the town board and the village board with respect to possible ideas that we were looking at. And at that time, we were talking about whether or not we would partner with the county, because the county was offering the option of all local governments and districts that were required to comply with the tax freeze to partner with the county, or the state also allows the option to go it alone if you can find your own 2% savings. Well, the third option was to partner with another local government or a few local governments. And at the time that we had attended these meetings with the county, and I'd made the presentation to both the boards, the talk was that it was a natural fit for the town and the village of Ossining to partner together. And at that time, the town supervisor had actually sent a letter to both villages here, Ossining and Briarcliff Manor, inviting both villages to partner with the town on this joint government efficiency plan. Briarcliff Manor did decline, but there was a general feeling that the village of Ossining had accepted, and we've been working with the town supervisor to get ready for this joint filing. The town would like to be the lead government in filing this plan. It just means that one of the members needs to be the lead government that files the government efficiency plan, just like the county provided that they would be the lead if anybody wanted to join their plan. So that's where we are. We're getting ready, and we had a lot of savings, and we had ideas for more, but as the information started to come out from New York State, some of the things that are savings, like we had thought that the refunding bond that we'd done in 2012 would qualify because that reduced our debt service in all years, including 2017, 18, and 19. But the state has pretty much ruled that they don't really see that that fits one of the narrow categories that they wanted us to use, which was cooperation agreements and shared services, or efficiencies or merges. So, I might put that on the bottom of the schedule. I don't need that in order for us to meet our 1% savings, but I still feel it's something important that we should remind the state about, that we took action to reduce the budget. But, in itself, the one big savings for the village was the having the union contracts, as well as the village managers make contributions towards health insurance. That in itself is more than $208,000 estimated for 2017. And of course, just very recently, we've been talking about the LED street lighting initiative, which is a very important item and one to be listed. And, but some of the other things that we were talking about are things that we just don't have, estimates for, like the possibility of energy improvements at the firehouses and the municipal buildings. But, we don't really need them since we have more than 1%. And also, because if we partner with the town has the savings from the police contract, IMA, with the village. And, this is the perfect example where partnering with another government that you provided an IMA for is good because, in this case, and I hate to use the, terminology, but, the village is doing the heavy lifting in this case to provide the services to the town where the town is able to show a very large savings. It's over $700,000 in each of the 3 years. And they only need $100,000, and we only need $208,000. So, that in itself would be a perfect example where, we could just file just that one item for a joint efficiency plan between the town and the village, and we would qualify for the tax freeze. But I think that I would like to include some of the things that we have on our own, just to show that, we do have savings on our own.
Yes, and I recall that when you did the presentation, you identified several areas of savings, and that the number one was the increased healthcare contributions. And I just want to clarify, this goes back, we can take advantage of any savings from intermunicipal agreements back to 2012, is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
So the healthcare contributions for 2017, 18, and 19 are for the CSEA employees, because the PBA does not have a contract right now, correct?
I think the PBA is contributing.
We get to contribute. Yes, they are contributing, but it's not an increase from.
Well, it's an increase from 2012.
Okay.
So we have that amount, and we could, if we wanted to, include a plan that that we'd like them increase in those future years. But I think I'm just being
No. Don't include anything for that because there is no.
For very little detail.
Okay.
These, it's just like one sheet of paper. You just list, savings from health insurance premium contributions, and you just list the total amount that you anticipate. And part of this filing is that the chief fiscal officer, as well as the chief executive officer, need to sign certifications that, that they believe that these savings are achievable, and that they're, reasonable in calculation.
What happens if you don't achieve the savings that you projected?
Right now, there is no audit by the state of these savings, and they have a very, very short turnaround. We have to file this by June 1st, and by, I think, August 1st, the State Department of Budget needs to certify which governments have complied with this requirement, and then that triggers sending the 2% or, whatever the increase would be to the homeowners. So, there's just no time for this information to be validated by the state.
Let me. You mentioned that one or the other of some of the big savings projects would actually cover the expense. But are you advocating for only listing the police contract, which benefits the town's bottom line savings, the healthcare contributions on our side, and LED streetlights on our side? Because there are so many IMAs that we have, and some of them have been restructured since 2012. Are there other things that you're planning to include, or is it just those three items?
We were not going to include any IMAs that haven't been changed. So, really we're talking about, and even like the finance IMA, that was retooled, I think, in 2010. So that would not qualify.
The REC IMA?
The REC IMA would, but generally it's the same dollar amount.
Cost neutral.
It's just
police
calculated differently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the big one.
So,
Right, the police IMA is the big one.
And I think that would have been a very small number.
Okay.
But we have more than enough. I'd actually encourage the town to probably include 4 of the 8 that we had identified. I really don't see anything wrong with listing more than the minimum. Mm-hmm. And if by chance there is some type of a audit process by the state, or like if they, do say that, okay, refunding bonds aren't allowed, well, at least there's others to fall back on.
So then the 3 big ones you identified, but there are some other intermunicipal agreements that it could possibly make sense to include that would demonstrate savings on the town side.
I had even included the possibility of the transfer function when the village court was dissolved, because that
Right.
took effect on January 1st. But that was a transfer function. The savings that we had on our budget became an increase on the town budget. And so when you file jointly with the town, I don't think it's right for us to claim the credit, and yet there'd be no...
Didn't we do it for cost savings?
We did it for cost savings.
Wasn't there cost savings?
There were cost savings for the village.
Oh.
And I think the town may have had cost savings since that time as well, as they, reduced the staff and things like that. But I don't need this, and the fact that it was a transfer function, and I read the definition very carefully, cooperative agreements and shared services and mergers are things that they're looking for and things that they encourage. I could include it, and maybe we will include it, but as long as we have enough to meet the 1%, and especially when you partner with the town, there's no doubt that we're able to achieve the savings.
So for anybody who is still watching this meeting and is wondering what a little bit more about the background of this is New York State's answer to their misconception that municipalities are not doing a good job at sharing services and looking for opportunities to save money for taxpayers by partnering with their neighboring municipalities. And so this board was very supportive of collaborating with the town and being partners with the town in the submission of this report because we have a really great story to tell on that front. And so given that, I would be inclined to, if there's savings that we can demonstrate, and I know there are on the court, then or anything of that nature, then is there any reason to not include items that reinforce that message to folks in Albany who have this misconception about municipal government?
That's why I didn't just want to do the bare minimum. I felt it was important to get the message out that there are big savings out there.
Great. And so taxpayers, you made reference to. They're going to get a rebate because this board, I hate to ask in this forum, but we are united in our intention to stay within the tax cap for this coming year's budget during the budget process this fall, which is a requirement. Otherwise, Tom's just spinning his wheels here. But what's interesting when when I attended that session with you and a few of us from the village that New York Conference of Mayors provided on this subject, and tried to give us as many answers as they had to the many questions we all had. We're required to stay within the tax cap this year and next year. Right now, you're creating the form that's required to demonstrate our anticipated savings for 2017, 18, and 19, but it doesn't say anything about us needing to stay within the tax cap in 2017, 18, and 19.
That's because the law currently expires in 2016.
Right.
Okay.
Because we are going through this effort and because we have been staying within the tax cap, anybody who got a check in the mail from New York State, they wanted it to drop by Election Day. Most people got it maybe by Christmas or January. It was a modest amount of money, but that's supposed to make you feel really great that New York State is giving you a rebate back. And they did it this time for folks in the Ossining School District. But that was... Last year was just the school district took effect. This year, municipalities and the school district. So you'll have a slightly larger check this year because it'll be reflective of your savings from the schools, the village, and the town. Next year, the schools will be done, and it'll just be the village and the town. Correct.
And the county.
And the county. Okay, the county is this year and next year.
So how many checks are we getting?
It's all in one check, right? I think.
I don't know.
They talked about the possibility, because it took so much longer time to mail out the checks, that they're now talking about the possibility of something of an income tax credit.
Really? Oh, I'm shocked.
Yeah, the administration apparently is sending a check to every property owner in the state.
Of course they are. Of course they are. That's what they promised.
Okay, so then my last question is, we always approach this as we're being partners with the town. New York State says that we need to identify somebody as a lead agency. The town has indicated that they would like to take on the title of lead agency. And what does that mean, especially when you're identifying that the village is doing the heavy lifting because we have so many more of the actual personnel resources to make these IMAs possible?
Each of the units that partner together provide their own savings, and they all get it listed on a sheet, but it identifies, which are the towns and which are the villages, and these documents need to be filed electronically with the state. So the state says, you know what, we'll only accept one combined filing for the partner group, just like the county, on behalf of all the towns and the cities and the fire districts that partnered with them, they're going to file one submission for everybody. And it's, for them it's like 6 sheets of paper, but it does identify who's providing what savings. So, as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't really matter that the town is the lead agency. That just means that they're going to file. Right now, the town supervisor has an ID to actually log into the system and do this filing because she had to submit a certification by January 21st. And we had to do a similar log on, but we had, set up Richard as the appropriate official to do that certification at that time. So, it really means nothing to me, and it shouldn't mean anything to you. We've had grants before, like the CGR grant, and we always have to have one lead government file for the state aid reimbursement, that the money is there. Afterwards it's split amongst the town and the village. And we've had the village, file aid claims jointly, and we've had the town file aid claims jointly. But our savings are going to be clearly identified, as to what we're contributing.
I want this to go through. I want it to happen. I'm not sure why it makes sense for the town to be the lead agency instead of the village. In my head of household tax filing, my husband's the head of household. He makes a lot more money than I do. So
they had sent a letter to the villages, offering and asking if we'd like to partner with them. We did not ask the same.
Is there any other? Does other staff have an opinion on lead agency versus just let's do it and the town really wants it, so that's fine?
Yeah, I think we agree that we should move forward, and one of us has to see it. So
okay.
Is that?
I'm doing the heavy lifting for both the town and the village.
Right. We know, Tom. We know.
Documents together, and then I just bring the certifications.
It's not more it's not more advantageous to one entity than the other.
Doesn't make any difference, guys. We're going round and round on this. It doesn't make any difference.
This is our first time doing it. We need to understand whether or not it makes a difference, and that's why we're asking Tom questions.
How many different ways does the man have to tell you it doesn't make any difference?
Until we're clear on it.
Tom, does it make any difference? What is the downside of us not being the lead agency, Tom?
I'm okay with it.
That's not what I asked you. Is there a downside?
There is no downside.
Thank you. That was it. I'm done.
We fulfilled the requirements of the tax freeze, and the residents get a tax freeze credit.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom.
So the next item is trustee liaison reports. I don't know if anybody has any. Sorry that we kept you so late this evening.
I do not.
Okay.
Does anybody have any reports that they want to include tonight?
Yes.
I'll be brief. We had the Rec Advisory Board meeting on Monday night. Camps are in full registration mode. I think the camp with the oldest group, I think is almost done. I think they're full. But some of the other camps for the younger children are still open. I think that there was discussion of the in lieu of Parkland funds, and as was pointed out earlier when Valerie was speaking, that Chris is probably going to come to us and he's going to do an assessment of all the park facilities that the village has, and just to provide an assessment and maybe prioritize a list of some things that he think we could do. He's also going to put the bid specs together for the gym floor, and hopefully he can get that done this summer. And the idea is sometime in the fall would be a good transition period. There were some concerns about some leaks in the roof, but apparently this spring they got up there and have patched a lot of that stuff. And there were no issues, during the spring for any leaking. So that was that. Fire department, Cataract. There are new engines in service. We had the wet down. It's been on some calls. It seems to be running smoothly. So that's what I have right now.
I'm going to let Trustee Herrera go next, if you would like to.
Sure. I'm just going to skim down very quickly. If you need any clarification, just email me, and I'll be more than happy to go into detail. Communities that care, they're in the process of getting ready for prom at Ossining High School. Now all students and their dates even are required to take a mandatory program for anyone attending prom. It's an online course. They're pushing parents to have them also complete alcohol EDU for a parent component. And they also just hosted 2 mental first aid trainings. Last night they hosted a prevention night for all the towns in the Lower Hudson Valley, entitled "Setting Our Kids Up on a Substance-Free Path." And they are currently getting 3 adults certified to teach adult mental health bilingually. So that's great. Downtown Economic Development Committee. As you heard last week, we appointed 3 residents to serve on our committee, and the first meeting of the year will be scheduled by downtown manager very soon, and I will urge the start of a action plan, goal, and vision for the next 2 years. Greater Ossining Chamber of Commerce began their Uptown Initiative last month to focus time and energy and resources on Croton Avenue, Camp Woods, and Pleasantville Roads. Neighbors Link Committee met, and they have designated 4 committees, 1 for programming, 1 for outreach, 1 for site selection, and 1 for fundraising. Ossining Help, they still meet at St. Anne's Church every Wednesday from 7 to 8:30 p.m. at 25 Eastern Avenue, specifically for wage theft and landlords refusing to return security deposits. Andrew Tuller is the attorney there. They also host Immigration Lawyer, which is available there from 5 to 7 p.m. also at St. Anne's. And my last report, which is great news, this Wednesday, May 11th, the County Board of Legislators unanimously passed the Child Safety Product Act, which will be banning toxic toys and clothing that has particular toxins and chemicals in them. Right now, the bill is going to the county executive for him to either approve or veto it. And the last one is that they had a public hearing on the proposed expansion of workplace smoking laws that would include e-cigarettes and other electronic nicotine delivery devices. So basically, in the county of Westchester, if this bill passes, e-cigarettes would also be considered as part of our current policy, so you wouldn't be able to actually light up. Right now, if you're a restaurant or a public space indoor, you could not enforce or prohibit the use of electronic e-cigarettes or nicotine devices. That's all.
Trustee Durayo?
I got nothing.
Trustee Quesada?
Thank you. This week actually is a reminder that it was in a lot of the media. It is actually Police Week, which is pretty awesome because there's a lot of things going on with the United States and other parts of the country that kind of difficulties in their behalf. But unfortunately, we don't have that problem here in Ossining. We have an excellent police department. It was shown today, and I think I'm not sure if it's. I guess I would have to talk to the chief, but I know it was videotaped, so I'm sure it's going to be in the media at some point as well.
Yep. It was live on television already, I think, right?
Yeah,
It was
went
live?
live, and
Okay.
they'll continue
Okay.
to. Craig will continue to program
awesome.
it.
So you can see that we had at least 23
members of the force.
23 members of the force that got awards and recognitions. We had a civilian.
There was a civilian and 3
and we
paramedics.
have fire, and then tomorrow. So that was pretty exciting. That was actually in the courthouse today, 6 o'clock, and I'm gonna let the mayor speak about. We have a new detective. So, but I'll leave that at last. But before that, actually tomorrow, if some of you are still up and watching this, tomorrow, and the county, we actually going to have, out of the 3 awards that are given out tomorrow, we are actually, we not, but the members of the police department are receiving 2 of them. One of them is actually for the murder that was solved from sometime last year to the detectives. And the other one is going to be, is actually for the saving of the lives of the 2 people of this CO that was actually a couple months back. And a lot of you guys actually seen that video. It's on YouTube. It's actually in the Facebook of the police department as well, and I was actually in the news. And for what I heard is actually, it was not just in New York, it was nationwide. Yeah. So a lot of people even in California saw that, so it was pretty cool to see. So that's my report. So be at the county tomorrow to be part of the action, I guess, that we actually celebrate in our police department. But I'll leave the mayor with the other detective appointed position that was done today.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yes, it was a really, really lovely ceremony. And it is Police Week. Police Week was established by our President Kennedy back in 1962. And we have an awful lot to celebrate here in Ossining, despite the fact that there are a lot of challenges in communities and departments around the nation right now. Our department is very well respected and embraced by the community for so many reasons. One of which is the heroic acts of so many in the community, particularly in the department, that were celebrated and honored tonight. And the appointment of a new detective is an atypical one. Chief Burton came to the board and indicated that he would like to appoint Officer Pete Carpenter to become Detective Pete Carpenter, which officially happened tonight, but not as an investigator. He is being acknowledged as a detective because of his contributions to the unique contributions to the department in the area of information technology, and that contributes to the safety of certainly the members of the department, as well as everyone who is ever in that building, as well as the whole community. Part of it is his contribution is to the community outreach and connection with residents through social media platforms and others, most recent of which is the YouTube channel that they started. And the first video they put up was that video of Officers Santucci and DeJesus going into that house with the carbon monoxide, and that led to a lot of positive press about the Ossining Police Department, including the fact that we were the first department in the county to have body cameras. And especially at a time when there was just a lot of negative press involving police incidents. It was lovely for our community to be highlighted in such a positive way. And so we congratulate now Detective Pete Carpenter and look forward to his continued dedication, particularly in the area of information technology for our department. And there's an awful lot going on, but we've kept everybody here till very late at night once again, and I thank everyone for their contributions to a very, very productive meeting. We all have a lot to get started on again in the morning. We are going to be taking a motion to adjourn to executive session for legal advice, and also we're going to continue our conversation on issue of personnel with a specific person. Okay.
So moved.
Second.
On the board? Aye.
Aye.
All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Thank you.
And with that, thank you very much for joining us. I hope you will join us next week, which will be the 20th of May. We will be having a regular meeting down at the courthouse, 8688 Spring Street. Good night.